you to the.
Which I think, oh, the cannabis retail, I don't know who that is.
You good with time?
Oh, no, she can't hear us quite yet until we get this one up.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
Good time?
I want to creep you out.
Oh, are we
I still
muted?
hear you. Cheryl, you good with time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we'll, first of all, I'm sorry,
Oh, thank you.
and you're welcome. And we'll get you out of here very quickly.
Appreciate it. Sorry?
Slightly threw me off when I hear the thud behind me. I'm like, what the?
However,
I actually cleaned it up today, too.
Hands on here. If I had a pocketbook, it'd probably be heavy too. Bag it's heavy.
Chris usually leaves us some here, and so he was like, I'll just grab them when I get there.
Are there not any in the back of the room? No.
I don't think so.
Damn.
There wasn't when I walked in, and I haven't seen Chris walk in. So.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, thank you.
we've got,
Yeah. There's Chris. Did you print agendas? Could
Get
you
out,
print,
Chris.
Could you print a
You're
couple?
fired, Chris.
Please, thank you so much.
See what I can.
And axed after one bad move. I'm kidding.
is Counselor Guston, is
She
she?
just walked out. I
Oh,
think.
she was just
Oh,
here.
okay.
Just here.
Oh,
Amanda is
here come in
here.
the first place.
Sneaky like that. Are we gonna have a no?
And we'll talk about, I know this lovely lady was here to talk a little bit about water, so you're gonna do that under the manager's,
Yeah.
want to do that under manager's
Yeah,
report?
yep, absolutely. Yeah, that was gonna be the brunt of it, the only thing I talked about, yeah. Yes. Ah, okay. Teddy, it would be,
Yeah.
it would be. Got it.
Okay.
Okay. 59. Okay. Counselor Guston is almost seated. Seated? That's my cue. Council, today is Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. It is 6 PM, and I'll call this regular meeting of the Barre City Council to order. We have quite a few adjustments to the agenda. See if I get them right, Mr. Manager. First of all, Council, I need to pull 4D off of the consent agenda. I'll be conflicted out on that. We'll take care of that right after we do the city warrants. We're going to move item 6, which is liquor and cannabis control boards. We're going to move that up to just after we talk about the adjustments to the agenda. We're going to add Heather Ritchie. You did have her packet or her resume and application in your packet, so we'll be doing that as item 8B, little b. And we also need to add item 8CA, which is a letter of commitment for the EPA report. The manager had emailed you this afternoon regarding that issue. And then lastly, if there's no objection from the council, I'd like to move item 8G, which is consider contract for study of Berlin Prospect Street stop sign. I'd like to move that up to the consent agenda if there's no objection from the council. Can I get them? And we will need an executive session.
I have a-
Yes.
I'm sorry, I have a brief follow-up on moving the consider contract to the consent agenda. Would that mean accepting it as part of the consent agenda would be voting to approve a contract?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, then, council, we will call the Liquor and Cannabis Control Board to order.
Okay, yep.
Cheryl, would you have something for us, or many things for us?
I have a few. So Summer Street Tavern, who was once known as Jerry Sports Bar, it's now owned by Tina Coates. She has put her application in for Class 1 and Class 3 liquor licenses. It has been approved by both Nick Coppin and Officer Brad, Chief Brad. We have also under liquor and license, Dollar General North End has finally paid for their second class license. They have not paid for the South End, but they have paid for the North End for the liquor, tobacco, and tobacco substitute. So that needs approval. Then there is under the cannabis, we have Vermont Strong, a cannabis retail at 69 South Main Street, owned by Steve Manning, looking for approval. That has gone through their routes. We just need to email them with an approval or not. And lastly, 802 Community Angels has an extra vehicle to their fleet. They have been approved in the past for their business. They just wanted to add another vehicle, and Brad has signed off on all the insurances. It's going to be the same two drivers. It's just now they will have two vehicles.
Okay, so that will actually require council 3 motions, because technically vehicle approval is not a cannabis or liquor control board item. So just pay attention to that. Is that everything, Cheryl?
Yes, it is.
Okay, council, how would you like to proceed? Why don't we do usually ask new applicants to come in and just introduce themselves to the council and see if we do have any questions. Ma'am, would you like to do that?
Sure.
Come right up.
So I'm Tina Coates. I've lived in Barre for 27 years. I work at Blue Cross and Blue Shield. I've been there 25 years, and I am purchasing Jerry's Sports Bar. It's something that I've always wanted to do all my life. I bartend as a second job for fun, have done that for 25 years as well, and decided that I wanted to do it on my own.
Fantastic. Any questions, council? No?
Colin.
Well, good luck. You're hardworking, that's for sure.
I am.
It's going to make for some long days, but we wish you well. Council, motion would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion, council? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, thank you very much. Dollar General,
Actually, I'm gonna write down who made the motion.
I did.
it was Counselor Deering.
Deering, and then
Deering.
just, because Cheryl might not be able to see everyone who's,
Sam seconded.
Sam, okay,
Oh,
great.
you know what? I'll make sure I call that out, Cheryl, for the remainder of the meeting, so that way you can get it, you'll have it on audio. So I'll make
Okay,
sure I
thank
call out who made the motion and who seconded the motion.
appreciate
Council, under liquor control, we still have one more item, Dollar General.
Dollar General.
Cheryl, you were saying they paid for one but didn't pay?
They only paid for the North End store.
Oh,
For
so
some reason.
apologies to the south end. Motion would be in order.
So moved. Second.
It was moved by Councilor Spaulding, seconded by Councilor Wazazak. Council, is there any discussion on the
I've
motion?
got a
Yes.
discussion. So is it just a payment that the South End Dollar General is needing to make in order to
Yes.
get there? Okay.
I mean, we could approve both and make your job a little easier, pending, obviously, receipt of the fee, so it could not be processed until the fee is received, but that's up to you, Cheryl.
I would appreciate getting this done and over with, and then I'll just deal with them through email on getting that second store done.
Okay. Is that all right with the mover and the seconder? Council, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, thank you very much. Is there a representative from Vermont Strong here? Okay, we do normally ask, and perhaps that wasn't communicated, we usually do ask new applicants to come in and just introduce themselves to the council. Yes.
And I think that's an excellent idea, Mayor. I was just wondering if Cheryl knew, is this our third cannabis business in the city?
1, 2, 3. This is number 3.
And this is brand new?
It is,
Brand
by all accounts, brand new. I mean, generally, it's funny because usually, do they redact retail licenses? I forgot, Cheryl, this one was not redacted. Do they
It was
redact?
not. It was
So it's,
not redacted.
technically, it's public record because it was in our packet. So I don't mind, it's located at 69 South Main Street. So, counsel, how would you like to proceed? Cheryl, do you recall if you did communicate with the representatives of Vermont Strong, that the council usually does like to have them appear at the council meeting for their first licensure?
What actually happens is the representatives for Vermont Strong do not contact me. It's the state themselves. They just send me an email stating that, in this case, Vermont Strong has applied for this retail business. I did not reach out. I hadn't before. The last one I only did was the Metro Foreman. That was the only one. And that was a renewal.
And as I recall, there was one other applicant who came in as well. Elizabeth came in.
Yeah, that was
Memory
before
request.
Cheryl, though, I think.
That was prior to my tenure.
Was it? Yeah, so council, it's up to you. I mean, I don't like to hold someone's license up, but
Right.
I can reach out to Steve Manning tomorrow and just let him know that it will be on next council's agenda and he needs to be present.
okay.
I'm fine to approve it tonight because it seems like this might be one of those like things that Carol just always did because she knew that that was our standard practice and not something written down.
Yeah.
And I would hate to hold up the license on what is ultimately a technicality of.
And with all due respect to folks who apply for liquor licenses, the background checks and, the vetting for a cannabis retail license is pretty stringent. So I'd have no objection to the council if that's, I just don't want to hold anyone up, if that's how you'd like to proceed. Was that a motion, Councilor
Yes, I'll make
Wazak?
that motion,
Seconded
yeah.
by Councilor Stockwell. Thank you very much. Councilors, any discussion? I'm sorry. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Thank you very much. Cheryl, thank you very much. I appreciate you popping in.
Okay,
You'll
thank
be
you so
signing
much.
off now, correct?
Yes, I will. be.
Okay, I'll try to keep things straight. I'll really do my best.
No worries. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Council, we'll do the vehicle one under the consent agenda because it doesn't fit. So we'll adjourn cannabis and liquor and push forward. So under item 3, visitors and communications, is there anyone wishing to address the council regarding an item that isn't on the agenda? Sir, there's a slew of you. Come on, no, come on up. You're good.
I'm Brian Voigt from the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission. I'm actually here for a different topic tonight, but was asked by our executive director to make sure that the council is aware of a Winooski Flood Resilience Roundtable that we're organizing for December 4th at 5:30 p.m. in Montpelier. And this is organized by Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission, Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, and others to take a look at coordination throughout the Winooski River Basin. And ideally, we would like for the council to appoint or identify 1 to 3 members of either the council or community that you could encourage to attend and report back out to the council at a future date.
And what time was that event, sorry?
5:30 on December 4th.
Yeah, I did have that in my calendar, Council, and obviously the more the merrier. So I'm sure you'll see at least 3 of us there.
Excellent.
And thank you very much for organizing that and the good work. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Can I, before you leave, can you please email all of that information to, or you can, that works too. Yep.
Give you that.
Now you have to.
I'll send this to everyone.
I have it.
You touched it. Now you have to
No,
email it.
it's good. That's good. Thank you.
Yes, anyone else under roundtable? Yes. How are you? If you could state your name for the record? Thank you.
My name is Abigail Beach, and I work at St. Monica Church and St. Monica St. Michael's School. And I just wanted to bring to attention and show concern that we've had some break-ins this year, more than usual. Excuse me. And there have been occasions where there have been homeless around the property, and also a car break-in. And so these things that are happening are out of the ordinary. They're more than usual and they're increasing. And we have lost some things to these break-ins. Things have been stolen. And I just wanted to bring that concern that this is something that we're trying to fix with more security cameras and stuff. But it's becoming more unsafe around the Barre City area. And I know that's not new information, but I wanted to bring it attention here because it's very important to me that the parishioners of St. Monica feel safe and the food shelf stays open and the church stays unlocked during the day because we want people to come and worship. But it's getting increasingly hard to do that because people fear for their safety.
Yes.
Thank you for coming in. So can you tell me, like, it's increased by like double, or can you say just a little more, give me a few more details?
So I've been here for 3 years. I mean, I was born and raised in Barre. I've lived in the same house my whole life. But when I graduated from college, I lived in Barre full time. So in my 3 years, we've had, I don't know, a few break-ins, but this year in particular, we've had at least 3 just this calendar year. And, you know, one was a car, 2 were to the buildings on campus, and they do break and steal things. I don't know how much it has increased before then, but I know I wasn't aware of it too much in my first 2 years as to now this year.
Thank you so much.
Councilor Deering.
I can absolutely appreciate where you're coming from. And I'm curious, what do you feel that could be done in order to help you feel more safe and secure? You know, are there things that you've thought about that we could do, and I see the wheels spinning.
Yeah.
Like you really, so I want to know.
I do think about it a lot. I don't have any like concrete solutions right now, but I know that we have several parents of school kids who are officers and who are able to come when the pastor calls and help us out. I think I don't know if we report everything. I believe we do. I'm sure we do. But I don't really know what could be done because I haven't experienced this. I think there's a lot of things that can be done, but are they practical? I don't know. Like police presence, more police presence around Barre. I don't know if that's practical or could be done. But that's, you know, just patrolling or like, I remember when I was a high schooler, there used to be, I think we called them like bumblebees on bikes. And they would be, you know, patrolling around just on their bikes, making sure things are safe. I don't know where those went or if they still are around, but that always made me feel more comfortable. I walk everywhere. I don't have a car. So in the winter, it's makes me nervous to walk home past 5, which our evening masses on Tuesday and Thursday are at 5. So I do walk home in the dark when I go to mass on those days. And I find, you know, cigarettes, I find bullet casings, I find lots of litter on my way home, people wandering around just like zombies. Yeah. And I know several people who are working at or volunteering with the parish that are getting more nervous about working in the church, even during the day, because it's just people wander in and they're looking for food and they're going to do anything to get to it.
Thank you. Council, do you think it would be worth, I know other communities have, to just have a forum where people could come and mean, this isn't the first time that we've heard, for those of you who might have attended another meeting at a church earlier this summer, this isn't the first time that we've heard these stories, and we responded by increasing the police presence. We effected some foot patrols in certain areas that were problems. Do you think it would be, I think it would be worthwhile to just have an evening where people could come and share their stories and we could search for solutions. Sometimes it's as simple as lighting. We've installed lighting around many of our properties in areas where there weren't any, and we have a lot more motion lights now. And sometimes it's just asking neighbors to keep an eye on things. And if they see anything, we ask them to call. And obviously there's strength in numbers. And, when you sit here on the council, it's disturbing to hear these stories because you want Barre to be safe, you want people to be comfortable, but we also have to be realistic about it. So increased police presence when we're down currently five officers is a challenge. It's a real challenge because our officers are always generous with their overtime and their personal time, but there is a point where you can't ask any more of an officer because it impacts their personal safety because they've simply been working too many hours. But I do believe that there's strength in numbers. And when I look around Barre and I talk to people, I think there's more people in Barre who will look out for each other than there are people who will break into buildings and damage them. So I don't know, Council, how do you feel about that? I'm sorry. Burn Rose?
I think she had her.
Hi, are you still talking with Abigail?
Yeah, I think she was on another topic.
I was on another topic. I have some thoughts for Abigail.
Oh, you have a different
Barre,
topic.
But
Okay.
I was on for another topic.
You had a different topic. Okay, I'll circle right back to you in just a minute, Burn.
But I'll just add a comment that a few years ago, one of the things that we did do in Barre is we started walking groups in the evening, early evening around dinner time, because we understand that when people are seen in their downtowns, it makes for safer downtowns. And so small groups of people would have little walking clubs, and we walked up and down Main Street and Summer Street and around town as a way to improve the feeling of security and safety in our downtown. So I will, though, wait until you come back to me for my topic.
Thank you. And thank you. Stay tuned. I think I'm seeing council members nod their head in agreement that we should just have an evening where people can express concerns. So look for that in the near future. Thank you very much for coming in. Yes.
I would just want to add, I would look forward to that conversation. I would just want to make sure that what we are doing in that is thoughtful solutions-oriented conversations that don't demonize anyone.
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is listen.
Yeah.
So I think it's a two-step process. Certainly isn't intended to demonize, well, unless you're breaking into buildings and selling drugs in our community, yeah, then I'll demonize it. Sure. But in terms of, I look at it as an opportunity to folks to share their concerns, because I think a lot of people are feeling them. Yes.
I think it may be helpful, or a suggestion that I would have is, it sounds like I agree with you, there are probably some people who are struggling in other ways and may not have the best of intentions. And then there may be people who maybe need more resources. And I would ask that we maybe have resources available that night to be able to point people in the right direction if they don't have, because having people come in and talk about something but not be able to offer solutions or give people the ability, and maybe the food shelf at St. Monica's is only open on certain days. And so what are other resources that we can provide? So I'm just thinking, like, not just having it be I'm all for listening to people and their concerns, but I also think we have to recognize that if people are at the point that they're stealing things so they can buy food, that's concerning.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to make sure we have resources available for all of our community members.
Yeah, we're aware of them, and we'll make sure that we bring those contacts.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Sonia and Amanda. Shh.
Did you have something else you wanted to say during visit and communications, Rose?
Hi, yes, Mayor.
Oh, thanks.
I wanted to say, yay, yay, hooray. We have the most amazing DPW workers. We have the most amazing water and sewer people. We have the most amazing road workers. And I just think this week has been a heroic effort on all their parts. And we need to, if I was there, I would stand up and clap and say, hurrah, hurrah for these amazing people who really just went more than the extra mile over the past week. And that's what I wanted to say. I want to know, what can we do? Is there something we can do to let them know how much we appreciate them as a community and as a city? You know, a declaration by you of their heroic efforts or whatever. Just, and that when we see them on the street, to wave at them and say thank you and not put out snarky remarks. So that's my thought about that. And that's what I originally wanted to share. Thank you, Mayor Lozon.
Thank you. We'll be touching on that during the manager's report. Representative-elect Booton, R.E. Booton, rebootin. How are you?
Some of my friends call me Booty. I would
I'll
not
pass.
recommend any of you guys do. So I'm here for two things. One, because I'm not going to be here next week. I'm sure Teddy's got the same schedule I do, correct? No?
I'll be here next week.
Oh,
You can do
okay.
both.
Huh?
You can do both.
Oh, okay. So first, I want to talk about the coin drop. The council coin drop usually is on Saturday, the second Saturday, or first Saturday of December. And I'm obviously not on council to bring it up, so I wanted to bring it up. And I know that Nicholas has it on the agenda next week. I want to just state how awesome this is for Christmas for Kids. That's the money is brought, to the city, and the city then gives it to the Juvenile Officers Association, which is handled by Officer Fleury. And the really cool thing about it is that officers hand deliver these gifts. And for most of these children who are socioeconomically challenged and are probably going to have some sort of interaction that may not be positive. And this is a super positive thing for them to experience. So I just wanted to put that out there and hope that folks support that next week and hope that you show up at the coin drop. So with that,
Can I ask you
yes.
a question?
Absolutely.
Since you won't be here next week, so for me to ask. I appreciate all of the work that is done and all of the people who donate. My question for you is, what about children who don't celebrate Christmas? Do we do anything for them?
I mean,
Can I answer that?
I guess,
Sure.
So they don't actually have to celebrate Christmas in order to receive gifts. You sign up, your name is given, and whether you celebrate or not, you're given gifts. So it's not based on a celebration.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because I think we have to recognize that there are people in our community who don't celebrate Christmas. And so I want us to try to be more inclusive and not just, there are probably a good majority of people who celebrate Christmas, but there are probably some people who celebrate other holidays, and I'm just trying to bring attention to that.
And they're not excluded. And
Well, they're not excluded, but it's called Christmas for Kids. So if you don't celebrate Christmas, you might not sign up for it because it might not apply to you, is all my point that I'm trying to make.
so I don't handle that portion of it. What I can tell you is that it's been called Christmas for Kids for, I'll look towards you because it was during your time that it started. It's just been that way, and I don't nobody's complained, so I don't.
I'm not complaining. I'm just asking you to consider that there might be others, kids out there who don't celebrate Christmas, and maybe we could find a way to include them as well. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And we can, and we will. I mean, the thing I really like about having Officer Fleury involved is that at times there are families who, for whatever reason, don't reach out. And Officer Fleury has been super over the years about identifying families who perhaps could reach out or should reach out, because we're certainly going to include everyone. And so Officer Fleury communicates with some of the staff at the high school, at the grade school, some of the teachers, so that they can discreetly approach parents and just let them know that this program is out there and that it's available. So I will absolutely see you on the 7th. I'll be making my phone calls the week before. Yes.
But it does seem like it might be a fairly minimal request to change the name. It could be like, so that everyone would feel more included. It could be like December gifts for kids.
Well, I guess
Discuss next week
we'd have
when
to
it's
make
on the
new
agenda.
signs.
The only reason I ask is because you're here and you won't necessarily be here next week, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was the most important thing I wanted to bring up, was the Christmas for Kids. But I also want to say thank you to Barre City for voting last week. And I can't express how humbled I am by being elected, 14 years on city council, and then, of course, a year and a half on the school board. I really appreciate Barre City for doing that. And although Teddy says that I can make it next week, I thought I got an agenda.
There's a legislative orientation next week, but the dinner starts at 6, so I'm just skipping the dinner to.
Oh, you're, okay.
Come here.
Okay. So anyway, I just want to say thank you to Barre City, and how I really am humbled by it. It was a very moving. I wasn't expecting the support to that level, and I just want to say thank you to everyone that voted. And I am very excited to be harassing Teddy on a daily basis come January, and he knows that he's going to have to deal with it. And we'll probably slug it out a couple times and then go to Gusto's, and I'll drink soda and you can drink whatever you drink.
It's a burden being in the majority.
I also want to express that I am here for you, Nicholas and Tom, for city council. I think that local government is extremely important, as I stated, 14 years on city council, and I 100% believe that. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, you earned every vote. You worked hard, and, it was a good campaign. Candidates had their supporters, but it was a good campaign. It was a campaign that Barre could be proud of, because people stuck to the issues, not personalities. There was no divisiveness. Like I said, folks had their supporters and others didn't, but you worked very hard. Teddy, you worked very hard, and both of you earned every vote. And to the folks who were not fortunate enough to be elected, they worked hard too. And, it's too bad we couldn't send 4, because there wasn't a bad choice in the bunch.
Yeah, that would have been nice to be able to send 4, not gonna lie.
If we could send 40, we could really pass some bills in the legislature
Hearing
for
some
Barre.
legislative initiatives.
Holy mackerel. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see you on the 7th.
All right.
Anyone else under visitors and communications? Okay, council will move on to the consent agenda. We're going to be approving the minutes for the meeting of October 28th, 2024. We do have one more vehicle license that was in your packet, so we'll be including that under item 4B, the clerk's office licenses and permits. We will be authorizing the manager to execute actually 2 contracts. One will be the Prospect Street repaving, and the other will be the study of the Berlin/Prospect Street stop sign. And that's that for those.
So
Yes.
moved.
Second and then discussion.
Okay, moved by Counselor Stockwell, seconded by Counselor Wazazak.
What's the timeline on the study? Because this is now getting very Orwellian of, we had a study that was gonna take 6 weeks, 8 weeks ago, and now we're approving a study.
I think they're talking weeks. I don't have the exact timeframe with me in the materials. today.
And will this also, some of the other topics that we've discussed under the other, so this is not part of the the broader traffic
No,
study
this is
that
not.
we've
This is
already
just the stop
commissioned?
sign and then some alternatives. The cross light, the crosswalk is just a matter of getting TJ, who's been working on the water breaks, to just change the timing. We have, I think, an elasticity of 2 to 3 seconds. It won't be.
So we'll do that while we're
Yeah.
waiting on, okay, and then this is where,
This is just the stop sign.
basically, we're trying to expedite this and not wait for the rest
So
of the
basically,
traffic study to
so
deal
this
with it?
came to you because we thought it was going to be a fairly nominal expense, and 2,500 is, I think, more than nominal, so I just want to make sure people wanted to spend the money on the study before we spent the money on the study, basically. So this will do the study on whether the stop sign is warranted, if there are alternatives to it on Prospect Street, and then, but it's only that. The crosswalk timing is something we think TJ can do, and again, we only have elasticity for a couple of seconds before we start messing with the timing of the synchronization of the other lights.
I hate the feeling of kicking the can down the road.
Brief,
Yes, sorry, two questions.
brief
Yes.
follow-up question. It will take weeks. Are they ready to start
I
immediately?
believe so, once they get this signed up,
Thank you.
yeah.
Counselor Spalding?
In the minutes, under approval of warrants, it said that I abstained and I wasn't here. So I absolutely did not abstain.
Abstained and abstention?
Yes, I think it's probably just under.
Cut and paste.
Yeah, it could have been a cut and paste, so I just would like that to be removed. And then my question regarding the paving project, on the estimate, it says Berlin Street, but in the packet, it says Prospect Street, so could we just clarify?
It's Prospect, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it might have just been a typo, but it's for the repair related to the break.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you so
Sure.
much.
Okay, anything else? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Thank you very much. Motion carries. Council Word Item 4A on the agenda, that is to approve the city warrants ratifying the week of October 30th, 2024 and November 6th, 2024, and approve the week of November 13th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Guston, seconded by Counselor Wazozak. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Counselor Word Item 4B on the agenda. I am conflicted out on this, so I will ask Counselor Stockwell to preside over the vote, Mr. Manager. Well,
Okay.
Oh, this 4D, I'm sorry.
have to let the council know what's going on.
Sorry, this is, 4D is a termination of an agreement between the city and the Vermont Granite Museum around use of Depot Square. This is a agreement that dates back several years, that is outdated, came up in a title search as the property's going under purchase. So we were asked to terminate this agreement just to clear up the title. We have no concerns with it. This is outdated, obsolete. So we're very fine with terminating it. We added language to clarify that to the extent there are any other agreements, they remain in effect, and only this specific one is terminated.
So should I ask why we did that or just,
It was.
no, like, why did we have the contract in the first place?
It was related to the big dig work
Oh,
at
okay.
that time, so
Gotcha.
it was, and it was time limited to that. It probably should have had a termination date, it just didn't.
Okay. Are there questions? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we're done, and it returns back to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. And would you just call who made the motion and who seconded? Because I wasn't
It
even
was
paying attention.
Teddy and
Amanda.
Amanda.
one of us.
Okay, so the motion was made by Counselor Wazazak and seconded by Counselor Guston. Okay, Council, obviously, City Clerk is not present. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll just chat a little bit about the water breaks this week, since that's pretty much what we did. I'll talk really about the South Main Street break, which was the more unusual and damaging one. So this was detected on Thursday early morning, and we believe this was caused by flushing of the pipes. This section of pipe that was damaged was the low-pressure line, and it's about a 100-year-old pipe. So what happened here was the crew was able to locate it and detect it. They just weren't able to get, once they started digging, they weren't able to reach the pipe. The water kept coming into the hole where they were digging. So normally what the crews will do is they'll locate the valves on opposite ends of the break and shut them off, and the hole will dry up and you can work. This did not happen. They located valves, they weren't working properly, and so this went on for several hours, and then in the afternoon, the crews came to me and said, look, we can't get to the leak, we can't get to the break, we can't stop the water, can we shut off the low pressure line, right? And so at that point, and so the consequence of that is, that means no water for everybody, right? So normally with a water break, what happens, like if this had been a normal one, right, we would have isolated it, we would have shut off the water, and maybe Cumbies and maybe the EF wall complex would have lost water, and whoever else was served right off of that. That obviously changed because we shut off the low pressure line for everybody, all water stopped coming in. And so that's why the city lost water, more than 3/4 of the city lost water. So that was it worked, the water stopped, and they were able, once they found the pipe, they were able to fix it within a matter of hours, which is what usually happens. They find it, they fix it, and they're done.
Which was 15 feet down, not
Yeah,
10
it was
feet down.
15, yeah, so that was one of the challenges that the maps DPW has indicated that the pipe was 10 feet down. It was not 10 feet down, they found it 15 feet underground. So that was another challenge that they confronted. So they finally found it in the early mornings, Friday. They made the fix and the repair fairly quickly. And then later Friday, the water department was able to start recharging the system, which means basically refilling all the pipes that had been drained. And so that's what, we made our best estimate as to how long that might take. We thought that it might be back by 8 o'clock in the evening. It obviously wasn't. My water didn't come back until overnight at some point, and I think there were people lagging into closer to noon when they ended up getting it. So what ended up happening was the north end got water first, and then the lower parts of the north end got water. Then it started working its way up the hills to the higher elevations, and till folks on the south end, and then ultimately in South Barre got their water back. So it was a very it wasn't unusual in the sense of what the damage was. It was just unusual in the sense that we were not able to stop the water for several, from 5 in the morning until 4 o'clock. They tried very hard to do this without shutting off the low pressure system. And at that point, we had to make a decision. And because otherwise we were just going to keep losing the water. So, so it was very inconvenient, I know, to many residents. Normally the, loss of service is inconvenient to usually the few people that lose it, but obviously the whole city was quite problematic. We were able to get some water with assistance from the state, and then some of our mutual aid partners provided non-potable water, because obviously, no flushing, no showers, like it was broader than a boil water notice. We had some additional breaks that occurred. I think our water treatment team did a fantastic job of recharging the system. One of the things we were worried about was when we refilled the pipes that it would just reverberate across the system, and the worst case scenario was multiple breaks of significant proportions because the water was coming back in. So they went slower and more carefully than maybe they needed to, but that was the right thing to do because we just didn't want to risk more delays on the back end of it. So they did a terrific job. We had some smaller breaks that occurred Saturday and Sunday that were detected. They all ended up being fairly routine fixes. Some people were, inconvenienced again with loss of service, but those were temporary. They were all back in the evening. So it was quite daunting for the team was quite stretched. We did receive assistance from Barrytown, which was fantastic. They sent us some bodies to be able to relieve our crews for the breaks on Sunday. But yeah, it was quite a bit for the crews to handle. We did some, we understand the frustration that people felt. Going without water certainly makes you appreciate having it. Certainly makes you appreciate having, when you flush that the water goes away. And so, we did some, just some brief calculations because I know people were, well, what does it take to fix it? Well, lots and lots of money we have about 50 miles of pipe that are, without the service connections that are the smaller 2-inch pipes. Taking those out, we have about 50 miles worth of pipe. It costs about, between the pipe sizes take different costs to replace. So a 6-inch pipe generally costs about $440 per linear foot to install. An 8-inch is about the same, $440. A 12-inch is about $475. And so it's expensive. That includes everything, right? That includes laying it, the engineering that goes into it. That includes the hydrants and trench patch pavement on top of it, right? So it's not, you can't just dig it up and put it back in. There's a lot that goes along with it. So if you're looking at the 49 miles of pipe and the cost per foot that it takes to replace it, I mean, you're talking, I don't have to tell you, very, very big numbers.
Well, throw a big number out there.
115 million.
$150 million.
So, it's a lot, right? And so we do have, we do piecemeal repairs, right? So this year, we had in-house crews do repairs of water line on Warren Street, so that's all done. Next year, we have, Brian's working on plans for Ayer Street replacement. We're going to replace a big stretch of the main on Route 302 with Senator Sanders' congressionally directed spending money. So there are times when we can do these projects. They just happen to be extremely expensive. And every pipe that's busted in the last couple of weeks that residents have had to live with this are over 100 years old. The one on Prospect was 125. So we're looking at it's a system that is vulnerable, and it's not. I think I just want to dispel people of the notion that this can be fixed next year, right? This is not a next year fix. This would be a fairly large commitment to if we want to replace all our pipes, that's what we're talking about. So it's our plan. One approach could be doing a master plan for the water system that would help us identify the most vulnerable spots, and that can be done. And then if we do that study with revolving loan fund, and then we start the construction on those projects, we get the study portions of the loan waived. So there are ways to do it. Realistically now, I think that having more information on the water system would probably be our best bet, just to know which are the most vulnerable, which are the oldest. And maybe starting from there and starting to tackle, pieces here and there. I mean, I do want to be, quite blunt, right, that this may have to come at the expense of other things, right? People care about paving, and, maybe there's less paving and more water mains. Like, I think we just have to be very candid that unless there's a large infusion of money from somewhere that we don't know about yet, that it's a limited pot of funding that we have to do these types of projects. So doing more of this kind of work, of pipe work, may mean less of other kind of work that people also care very deeply about. So I'm happy to take questions. These are, preliminary. I, worked on these with Brian and Dawn today. I should also note that, these are expensive events. So this is, again, preliminary because we have to go through the timesheet audits and all that. But the Prospect Street repair, which we have some numbers for, were 438.75 regular staff hours, 52 and a half overtime hours, 103 and a quarter hours comped. And so that the cost of all the hours paid out plus the comp accrued, plus, thank you, the paving contract approved just now, is about $109,000 for that event. So those are paid, they're split between Water Enterprise Fund and General Fund, depending on it. That's why I can't give you the exact, we have to figure out where the hours were logged, so we know where they're being paid out of, but essentially almost $110,000 for that event with hours worked plus repaving.
And that doesn't begin to count the losses. The losses of revenue and
Right.
people's inconvenience. So it would always be good if we had enough money to do it right, so that we would in fact save money by having money, but we don't have money. So the master plan, do you think we could reasonably fund that and take that on? Like
Yeah,
just
I think,
Developing a master
I
plan?
think we could. I think we would look to either fund that through a revolving loan fund or, I'm even looking at my friends from CVRPC, we would talk to them about finding ways to fund something like that.
Something like what?
Like the master plan for the water system, just identifying the priorities, vulnerable spots, if we set aside a certain amount of money to do a certain amount of linear feet per year, which are the ones we should tackle in which order? And so that, because right now, from our perspective, the entire system is vulnerable. Like they all, the breaks, if you look at the breaks geographically, there's no pattern except everywhere, right? So, and all these pipes are quite old. So, that may be a prioritization point, but there may be other ways to get a better sense of which are the ones, if we're going to take limited resources and try to prevent the greatest damage, which are the ones we should fix, right? Which ones are the ones that are connecting to the greatest number of homes, right? So if there is a break, it's limiting the impact to residents. So that would be a start, right? That's at least an information for us to work off of to then invest the resources. Because right now, frankly, you could close your eyes and drop your finger on a map, and that would be a good line to fix, or it should be fixed. But maybe better data from specialists would help us prioritize it better.
Councilor Deering.
Do we know of any state or federal grants that we might be able to tap into, Clean Water Act or anything like that, in order to kind of help save us in some of this?
Yeah, I'm sure there's resources for us to do that. I think that, it's a matter of chasing it and being able to cobble together. A lot of, the challenge with some of these projects is sometimes you have to cobble together multiple funding streams, and so they don't always, the timing doesn't always align, but I'm sure, what we would look to do, the revolving loan fund is a source I talked about with Brian today, and Amy may agree or disagree, I see her hand up, but I know there are sources, like, for example, the Sanders CDS money is going to help us replace a large stretch of the main on US 302. So I don't think this all has to be city, it's just, the scope is still pretty massive, right? It's a lot of miles of pipe that are potentially in need of a replacement.
Councilor Guston? Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Shambo.
I'm going to echo Byrne in terms of how magnificent everybody was to get this done. What kept occurring to me is it's such a first world problem, but it seems so insurmountable. So the fact that we got it back that quickly, especially in light of what's underground, is just amazing. I'm a little concerned about the maps, when you start doing new lines, we're going to need to have more accurate mapping. I remember hearing during our first flood in '23 that there were parts that didn't drain because people didn't have accurate maps to be able to figure out how to get it to drain. So that's a huge concern as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, we need a master plan. The problem is just what you're saying. This might be what we're facing more and more frequently, especially if you think about how pressure in one area affects pressure in another one and then blows things apart. So, yeah, whatever we can do. And
yeah, and on that, I'm glad you brought up the maps. We have invested in an asset management software for public works that they're able to GPS locate all of their structures, manholes, valves. I mean, it's being populated now, so they're trying to get all that data uploaded. And it was something that was underway well before this, but it just takes time to get all that data, from all the sources that we have and to get it in one place. But eventually what that will do, once we have it all populated, is, we purchase tablets for all the trucks. So you have a tablet, it takes you to a GPS location, it tells you, this is where the valve is, and you don't have to go read a map in the Public Works office that says, go 2 feet right from the GMP pole, dig 7 feet down to the rock, and then hang a left, right? Like that's, and then, we saw it this week where, the pipe wasn't 10 feet down.
Right.
And it wasn't 11 feet down, it was 15 feet down.
Right.
So, so they're, a lot of times they're operating with, almost a blindfold on. But this asset management software is gonna, bring them, Brian and I like to joke, into the late 20th century. Because that's what they should have, right? They should be able to go plug in, open a map, and it should take them exactly to where, the valve or the manhole or whatever the drain is. Yeah.
May I add one more
Oh,
thing?
sure.
The other thing this calls to mind is the need to be proactive from now on. I think we're just now starting to get to a point where we're realizing what we're facing. I think it's been brought to light by the 23-24 flood, now the water breaks, and it would be wonderful if we could start getting ahead of it. And I appreciate the work that people are doing, like, setting people up with software, et cetera. It would be wonderful if we could work really quickly.
Amy Gelford?
Thanks. So I guess I'll speak first, wearing my day job hat, which is that I do work for the state drinking water state revolving fund. So that's EPA and state money that comes together for mostly low interest loans, some of which we can forgive parts of. So parts of it act like a grant. So, the city under that did have a loan a couple years ago for an asset management plan. And of course, an asset management plan, you could probably continue it forever and make it more and more detailed, but there is an asset management plan. So if any of council is interested in it, I'm looking at a copy that I have access to right now. It's a 70-page document that's gone through talking about the condition of the water system. There are elements to that, like the manager mentioned about the Route 302 main, and then also it also includes things at the treatment plant. So kind of analogous to the wastewater treatment plant needing work. There's long-term plans for work at the treatment plant. Certainly there's more detail that can do in that, but you do have that as a good starting place. There's also on the city website a capital plan specifically for water infrastructure, which is more about the distribution system and specific streets. So I guess switching back to my local citizen hat, I'm going to make the same comment I did about the stormwater and flood plan, which is we're not starting from nowhere. There are existing plans and priorities. So I think, starting on the things that have already been identified, I'm not sure what went into the particular choice of 20 streets that are on the city website for the capital plan. But somehow some of those were identified, and I don't know if it was in coordination with road repairs that were needed or budgets that could fit or that sort of thing. But there's a list of specific streets that are planned in the coming years. So I guess if that's not a good plan, then it shouldn't be on the website. If it is a good plan, then that's a starting place for where things go. And also wearing my citizen hat, when things have come up for other funding for things like how to use the ARPA money, I've made comments about it's great to put this into new housing, but we have a lot of existing housing in the city that depends on its existing water and wastewater structure. And that affects everybody, the new housing, the old housing, that kind of thing. And on a personal note, I just went through replacing my service line, and that was at a cost of $15,000. So I have a good state job. I was able to afford that. I've been saving up because I knew time would come, but that became an urgent thing for me when one of the city water mains in my neighborhood broke. And my service line became the weak point. So suddenly the thing that was on the list became an urgent project for me. And I think we have a lot of vulnerable homeowners in the city who might not be able to just suddenly pay for a $15,000 project. So just keeping that in mind. I know there's way too many things that we all need to pay for. on water infrastructure, but when we talk about housing, when we talk about recreation, you can't have a swimming pool or a hockey rink without the water system working. So I think we need to focus on the fundamentals of the water and the wastewater system.
Thank you. Yes.
Kat, I was going to say this
And
is
your
the-
last name?
Allen.
Thank you.
Not to be mistaken for the other Kat Allen, though, Tom. It's very confusing. Just playing with you.
Yeah, I'm just doing this because our clerk isn't present, and she's going to have to take the minutes of the meeting from the,
We miss you, Cheryl, at council tonight. This is Kat Allen.
thank you.
You're welcome. This was the first event where we got to try Regroup, the new notification service. And I just wanted to say I thought it was very helpful to get like really quick point in time information, because sometimes checking Facebook, and there was a lot of people this weekend that, you know, were trying to figure out where's the Facebook post, what's the update, sign up for Regroup, and then you don't have to find it. It was good. Thank you for being proactive.
Yeah, it got tested a little bit.
It did. And I would just say that one of the other benefits of Regroup is that I can send a Regroup message from this phone, which I carry with me all the time, and I can only send a VT alert from my laptop, which I don't carry with me all the time. So people on Saturday and Sunday, I don't believe I know they didn't get VT alerts because I wasn't near my computer, but they did get regroups. So I know there's, people may think it's duplicative, but these are, the regroups are guaranteed because they can come from a phone, from a laptop, from anywhere, and VT alerts, at least on my phone, doesn't work. So it's a good reason to sign up for them, even if you think it's duplicative.
So that was helpful. Thank you. So I asked the manager to put that together, regarding the cost, because it's important to note that the sky isn't falling. Politicians love the words crumbling infrastructure because they think it makes them look smart and they get votes. The simple fact of the matter is we have a lot of older infrastructure in the city. What we try to prioritize are, of course, our main transmission lines. When we get the opportunity, when we're redoing streets within the city, we replace everything. We replace the water lines, most recently on, what was the last street that we just did this year?
The water line, I think we did on Warren was on this year.
Right. So as we repave streets, rebuild streets, we take the opportunity to replace the water and sewer lines. The thing about water lines is you can't send a camera down a water line to evaluate their condition. So when a pipe is 15 feet underground, you saw the price tag, $75 million. So as a city, we have to make choices. And some of the choices aren't convenient for our residents because in most instances, if the pipe breaks on Nelson or Delmont, we isolate Nelson or Delmont, we fix the pipe, and the 20 or 50 people who might live on Nelson or Delmont are inconvenienced for 5 or 6 hours. We effect the repair, and then sometimes we have to boil our water. So a lot of us have gotten used to, we have gallons of water in our basement. Karen fills gallon jugs and she puts them just so we can still enjoy coffee and brush our teeth when that happens. But you hear a lot of folks complaining about everything in the city is crumbling. It's all going to hell. It's not. They have water main breaks in Burlington, in Montpelier, in Hardwick, in large and small communities, because as I said, what we really concentrate on is being able to isolate the issue, because you can't evaluate pipes that are 15 feet or 10 feet underground. They're not like the sewer lines where we saw some of those camera images, and we can identify lines that either are partially failing or in danger of failing. It's just not the case here. So, the $75 million number, that was to replace all 50 miles roughly.
115 million.
Oh, 115 million.
Yeah.
Oh, the price went up. So if you imagine, okay, well, what if we
5 more
just,
minutes.
what if we just did a quarter? Okay, that's only 30 million. In a city where it was a godsend to have $1 million after the flooding. In a city where we wish we had $15 million to affect more flood resiliency plans, which we're going to be talking about a little later in the meeting. So, the sky isn't falling, and, the folks that I really felt badly for, I mean, I felt badly for anyone who lost their water. And thank you to so many citizens, because as I looked at social media, people were thanking our workers who really worked their tails off. At a certain point, when you're working with heavy equipment and you're working in tight, confined conditions, it starts to get dangerous after about the 20th hour. You probably shouldn't really be doing that, but they did, and they worked really hard. They got our water up and running as quickly as we could. And I know for many of our restaurants and many of our merchants downtown, the folks who literally had to close their business, that's like a double kick in the pants. Not only did they not have water, they didn't have revenue for the entire weekend. So, I just wanted Nicholas to talk about this because I want to put things in perspective. That if you really think about, we definitely had a bad week for water breaks. But, pipes break in Barrytown too. That happened at the end of the weekend. And sometimes there is this ripple effect, as I was talking with some of the folks from DPW over the weekend, when you actually depressurize our pipes. So when we took the water out of them, the pipes actually had an opportunity to break because they were collapsed. There wasn't that pressure kind of holding them together. Then you depressurize them. A lot of times that's just as bad. So, like I said, I just wanted to put things in perspective. We absolutely budget to chase water main breaks. We know that it's going to happen again. I hope the next time it happens, we can do it the way we normally do it. We can isolate the problem quickly, fix it, and inconvenience as few a number of people as we possibly can. So, Amy, did you have another comment that you wanted to make? And then Councilor Guston?
Yeah, just one brief thing I forgot to add, kind of to Bern's point and to yours of thanking and honoring the DPW workers. I think it would be really nice if we can find some way to have concrete progress on a new garage for them.
Interestingly, the restaurants are already doing that.
Given how hard they work, and I know that's just one more thing on the list of expensive items, but I think we owe them all so much. It would be nice to figure out a solution for them on the public works garage.
Yeah, we didn't have to. Interestingly, the folks that I was just talking about who are inconvenienced the most are the ones who stepped up first. And there were several restaurants around town who said, hey, if you work for DPW, come on down. I want to buy you dinner. I want to buy you lunch. I have a gift certificate for you. Nicholas collected 25 of them from one of our local restaurants. So absolutely. And at our holiday gathering, we'll make sure they're feeling the love, Amy, so.
And get them a new garage.
There you go. Okay, and one last point. I don't think we could even bond if we didn't do the 120 million, if we just did 20% of that.
It'd just go up.
I don't think we can bond for $25 million. We don't have that kind of capacity, and I don't think people would want to see their water and sewer rates increase by 10 times. Because that's exactly what would happen. Councilor Guston.
Two things. First of all, could not possibly more heartily echo Amy's comment about the DPW building. That is a priority in the flood plan. That is a priority for this council, and it should be a priority in light of what we were discussing tonight. And second of all, a very brief follow-up question for the mayor. The two additional smaller breaks that happened over the weekend, were those a result of that depressurization and then repressurization system, or were they sort of just isolated difference?
They may have been. We don't know for sure, but it's likely that it was because it was the low pressure line in South Barre that was impacted again. Luckily, the North Main ended up being just a leak around the valve, so it wasn't even a break. So they had to shut off water just to make the fix. But I think what they told me is they were missing bolts, and so. Surprised about that one.
Well.
That was a new one to me. But that ended up not being a break. It was just a bolt situation. And the South Barre one, I think, because of its location, was likely the last place that got water back. It may have been the place the longest without water. So it's likely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to, I'm sorry, was there anything else under your report?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Just want to talk about water main.
That's all we did.
That's it. I know, that poor Nicholas, that's all he did. That and answer my text messages 50 times a day, but thank you for your patience. So council, under item 8A, the regroup sign-up tutorial. So simple, even a mayor can do it.
All right, let me get this up. 1 second, and I will.
Do you mind if I turn this?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, thanks, Counselor. So thanks for council for indulging me on this. I thought it would be helpful to run through this so that it's recorded and people can see it and come back to reference it, because the regroup sign up can be a little bit clunky. It has multiple steps, but once people are in the app, it's actually pretty easy to use, and like I said, it's the best way at this point to get a message from the city. So, so just what is Regroup? It's a messaging system that the city purchased to send important updates directly to your phones, right? So that's where most people are getting their news now, is on their phone one way or the other. So we figured, why not us as well? The app it's an app that you download, and it's free to both download and use, so there's no cost to you. The city just pays a subscription fee annually. And the app will send you in-app notifications. So it's not a text message, it's a little banner with the Regroup logo. You tap on it, and it's like a text message, but just different. We pay separate for text messages, so we can send in-app notifications to as many people as sign up. So I've actually, I've encouraged people from Barre Town to sign up for this, because they're on our water system. If they want to know about the boil water notice, they can get updates on Regroup. It doesn't cost the city an extra nickel to have them on it, because they can get we can have as many users through the app as we want. They'll also get, things that don't relate to them, but it may be helpful for people in surrounding communities to get this as well. They're welcome to sign up for the app as well. So I just want to walk through the process, because it's a little clunky, and hopefully I can walk people through it, and if they're doing this at home, they can refer back to this recorded meeting. So the first thing that people should do is go to our website. The link is right here on this slide, and what I'm going through now, by the way, is the instruction manual that's posted on the website. So this is what you would go through yourself if you log into our website to do this. So go to that website. You can also go to that by just looking at going to the main webpage, and there's a huge banner at the top that says sign up for Regroup notifications. You click that, and it'll bring you to this same spot. You fill out that blue intake form with all the information that it requests, and then you click the subscribe button. And very important that you do all of this in order. We've perfected the steps to make sure that it's as many steps as this is. We believe this is the fastest and most sure way to get this downloaded. After you do click subscribe, you're going to go to your App Store or your Google Play Store and download the app, and you just type in Regroup, and it should be the first one that comes up, and that's the logo that you're going to want to, the icon that you're going to want to look for. The next step is to launch the app and enter the email address. It's going to ask you for an email and a network. So you're going to want to enter the email address that you used to sign up on that blue intake page on our website. And then for network, you're going to enter Barre City, all lowercase with no spaces, in the network field. You'll select the Remember Me button and then hit Next. This will take you to another prompt on the website to enter a password. So this is where it kind of gets a little bit clunky, because when you signed up on the blue screen on our website, you didn't create a password, so now you have to go through that process here. And so that's why there's a couple of extra steps, but that's what you're doing now. You're basically creating a password that wasn't an option on that first page. So since you do not have it's a new account, and you do not have a password yet, you tap the reset password link on this part of the screen.
And right here, right there was where you lost me.
Yes.
When I was signing up, because I'm looking at the password and I'm putting in my trusty password, and it's not doing anything and saying password incorrect. I'm like, well, no kidding. I don't. And it took me literally 15 minutes of frustration before I finally said, well, what if I reset it? What will it do?
There you go, and it worked.
And that was the only place. This was the only place I had a problem.
It's tricky. This is the reason why there's so many extra steps, but we worked. This is why we were a little bit delayed in launching this.
Everything else was fine. It was right here.
Yeah.
I struggled.
So once you do that, you enter, you'll get another screen right on, this is all happening on your phone, and you're still in the app. You'll enter your email address, which again, is the same one. You keep using the same email throughout this whole sign-up process. And you tap the reset password button.
To reset your password.
To reset your
That doesn't
password.
exist.
So then, you're going to go to your email account. And again, yes, the same one you've been using all along. You log into your email because you will have gotten a link, an email from Regroup with a link to create a password. This is also very important. Make sure you select in that email, this is the text of that email you will get. Make sure you select the change my password option, not the change my password mobile option. Again, this is, trust us, we've done this through a lot of trial and error, and this is the way to go. So you will press that button, that you're now in your email, you'll press that button. This will bring you still in, not back in the app, you're still in your email, this will bring you to the Regroup website, and this is where you create your password, okay? And so you enter it in both spots here on this page, and then when you are done, you just tap the Change My Password button. Now you have a password for your account. Now, you may you may get an error message, and that's because the password has certain rules. It has to be at least 8 characters, lower uppercase letters and characters, and at least one number and symbol. So make sure that, if you do get an error, it's one number or symbol. So if you do get an error, it's probably just that you haven't met all the rules. So just keep working on it until you get a password that meets the rules of the system. All right, so now, step 10, you shift back to the Regroup app. And now you can log in with your brand new password that you just created. And this will get you into the system, and you're almost there at this point. You will start to get, you'll start to see it because you'll start to get some pop-ups about how the app will work on your phone. So the first thing that'll come up is they'll want to know if Regroup can use your location. We encourage you to choose yes, to choose allow while using the app. We have the capability to send geofence messages. We're not that advanced yet, but in the future we may be able to. So we encourage you to choose that option so that in the future that's an option on your phone as well. We encourage you, you'll get a prompt if you want to get notifications. We encourage you to select allow. This means that when we do send a message, it'll show up on the banner of your home screen. You won't have to go looking for it in your phone. The app, strangely, asks if you want to give access to your motion and fitness activity. Please click don't allow. We don't want it. We don't need it. I don't know why it does it. And so the city doesn't want to use it. We don't need it. Click don't allow. I don't even know what happens if you say allow, but we have no use for it. So I don't know. And they couldn't remove that from the sign-up process. So just we encourage people just click don't allow when that prompt comes up. So now you should be, after doing that, you should be logged in and fully subscribed to the BC Residents Alerts channel. And you can verify that very easily by clicking on the profile icon at the bottom of the screen on the app. And then if you tap the channels tab, it should say right there, BC Resident Alerts. And that means that you're fully subscribed, and you'll start to get messages. So that's it. I know it's 13 steps. I know it may seem counterintuitive, some of them. I know that it's a little bit clunky for parts of it, but it's doable. We have very happy, this has been rolled out for a week or so. We have 550 people registered, which is terrific. My proxy for success on this is when I send a VT alert message, I usually capture about 2,100 contacts, so I think we're a quarter of the way there, which is really great for being so early in the registration process. So I really encourage people to sign up. Like I said, I'm the message sender for the city, and if I'm not near a laptop, I can't send a VT alert, but I can always send a Regroup message. So I really encourage people to sign up for Regroup because it's going to be the more surefire way to make sure that you get timely alerts from the city. So this is available, like I said, it's available on our website. If you go to the main homepage, the very top banner on the website will say sign up for Regroup messages. Click that link and that'll take you to the blue sign-in page. There's a big link there for the instructions manual. So just follow that very closely. And 550 people have been able to do it so far. So I have faith that many others will. So that is all. I just thank the council. I thank the council for indulging me. I just thought it'd be helpful to have it recorded and have people have a reference to it. So.
Quick follow-up question. The app is fantastic, first of all. And if, like me, you have an Apple Watch, it goes to the Apple Watch too if you select notifications. So even if your phone is in like the other area of the house, you know that you can get a drink of water again because the boil water notice has lifted. So good news. A number of folks in Barre City certainly don't have smartphones. I know I have constituents who rely only on a landline, and I know that we had talked about as we were getting this ready that there would be some limited ability to make phone calls as well through this app. And I understand that we want to make sure as many people use the app as possible.
Yeah.
What is the process for signing folks up if they have to through landline?
Yeah, so we're that's going to be our next phase of the rollout. We're working on an intake form to do that. We want to be appropriately judicious in how we do that to make sure that we're reaching people who absolutely need it, because we have the potential to be charged extra for those, right? So we have the way the contract between us and Regroup works is we have a certain cap on messages and phone calls we can make per year, which is the number's escaping me now, but I think it's 250,000, which sounds like a lot. But
We'll go quickly.
But it goes quickly because, every every water break is at least 2 or 3 messages. Every winter parking ban will be 2 or 3 messages, right? So they can, and it'll add up very quickly. So we're going to do an intake form for that, and we're probably going to be very judicious because that's the only way that the city may incur additional charges for use of the app. But we will be, expect that number to be fairly manageable in the sense that we can probably collect people's information and log them in. Like Roxanne in my office is probably going to be able to log those people in once we get the intakes for it.
It might, when we get to that rollout point, it might be useful for those of us as counselors who, as I said, I can think of a couple of constituents that I know or people that I know in the city. It might be interesting or useful if there's a way that we can do that process with people that we know and connect with and be a sort of another support.
Absolutely.
We'll probably be ready. We could have those intake forms ready. So when we do voting in May, we'll likely, because, it's not something we're going to roll out next month. So we'll have those intake forms so folks could fill them out and get them right back in case they have any questions. Erica Reel, did you have a question?
I actually have a two-part question. I'm just wondering, because I don't know how this is different than like Vermont Alert. And also I work with a lot of folks that don't have phone access. They don't have cell phones at all. And I'm just wondering how this works for them. They don't even have landlines. So I'm just wondering, again, how this will work for them. Thanks.
Yeah, so that question, unfortunately, is easy, that if you don't have a phone or a landline, this won't help you. This is really to reach people who do have access to one of those things. So if they don't have those things, there's just, this app is not the solution for them. The way this is different from VT alerts is, number one, this is a lot easier for us to send messages from. So as I mentioned earlier, I can send regroup messages from my cell phone to the entire network. So all the messages that were sent this week were sent directly from my cell phone. VT alert I can only send from a laptop. So people on Saturday and Sunday, for example, because I wasn't at a laptop, didn't get VT alerts for those breaks. They only got regroups, and if they're on Facebook, they saw the Facebook postings. The other difference is that VT alert is not, we don't own it. It's we get access to it through the state. It has some limitations in terms of the types of messages that can be sent. So for example, on regroup, we can send messages about property tax due dates, water bills due such and such date, right? Those are the types of messages you can't send through VT alerts that we can send as reminders through regroup, because they're not necessarily life or death emergencies, but they're still important messages to get to residents. So maybe we can send, and this is still, right, this is our first year doing it, so we'll find out what, the types of things that are important. But for example, we could send hey, today's town meeting day, if you're a registered voter, go to the, odd or whatever, or your ballots are out, or request your ballot here, right? So there's a lot of messages that we want to get out to residents that are not appropriate for a VT alert, that are very appropriate for our own messaging system.
I would just add to that, in response to Erica's question, that I think this is a challenge that municipal, state, federal governments, public campaigns, et cetera, are facing now, is that people get their information. And, it used to be put an ad in the paper, put it on Front Porch Forum, and you're probably good. And that's just not the world that we're living in anymore. So I don't think of this as the solution. This is not going to be the thing that makes sure everyone in Barre knows everything that's happening. I think that this is one of those tools. And, I would certainly look towards what's soon to be a quorum, for the unhoused community committee. Be great to eventually have some recommendations for them on how we can reach folks who may be living outdoors or who may not have reliable access to cell phones, et cetera. So I think, Erica, the point is well made. And, I don't want anyone to think that this is, going to be the end all be all cure all of public communications. But I would commend the manager on, over the past however long you've been here now, it feels like forever, trying your best to expand the methods of communication of the city, because we do have to be meeting people where they are. And for some folks, that's, going to be social media and not necessarily Facebook. For other folks, it's going to be these types of alerts. And so governments have to be adaptable and be innovative. And I think that that's what you're trying to do here, and, admitting that it's not going to reach everybody, and we have to continue to work towards that.
And I think that we saw a huge spike in registrations after the breaks, and I think it's probably, I like to think it's because people who were signed up maybe talked to people that, they were hearing updates that their friends weren't, right? And so I'd like to hope that that people are getting comfortable with it, and that that people are going to start leaning into it as a good way to find out information, because it is beyond my wildest hopes that we'd have 550 people signed up after a week or so of being live with it. So.
Does that mean we need more water breaks?
No.
There is no proven scientific cause and effect. Councillor Deering.
Correlation, not
We
causation.
also sent out a letter at the school for the regroup. So all the classrooms got it sent out. So I know that was really helpful for parents to get.
You pass that little password page and you're home free.
You're home free, yeah.
You gotta get, okay, thank you very much. That was helpful. Council, we're at item 8B on the agenda. This is volunteer appointments. Thank you, folks, for hanging in there with us. We're going on and on a little bit this evening. Mr. Barlow, I think I saw you on the,
Yes, there.
there you are. How are you? Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your interest in the committee?
Absolutely. For the record, my name is Dan Barlow. I've lived here in Barre City for 10 years with my wife, Paivon Lukamon. We bought our first house here in Barre. We were living in Montpelier before, and Barre was an affordable place, and we quickly fell in love with this city and its history and its people. And for the past 2 years, I've also been the executive director of the People's Health and Wellness Clinic right in downtown Barre. We're the county's free healthcare clinic. Both being a resident here and caring deeply about the future of Barre City, and also my work at the People's Clinic, I think I'd be a great asset to this city committee. I'm really dedicated to addressing the needs of our most vulnerable in our community. And I think both my background in healthcare policy and working with the unhoused already at People's Clinic, plus my background as a journalist and a lobbyist, gives me some skills and some insights to hopefully find some solutions here for the city to both find more housing for people who need it, but also make sure that people feel safe and comfortable when moving around Barre City, especially at night.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions?
Just a motion.
To approve.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councillor Wazazak, seconded by Counselor Guston. Is there any additional discussion? The only question I ask folks, Mr. Barlow, have you attended any meetings to date? I know they've been largely inactive because they have lacked a quorum, but have you had the opportunity to speak to other current members of the committee?
I have spoken to some of the current members of the committee. I'm excited about the group that I'll be joining. I think there's some real skills and some people who really bring a lot of passion to this issue. So, but I admit I had never been to a meeting when it was more active.
So it sounds like you've got a good handle of the demands that membership will place on your time, and you're prepared to make that commitment.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Council, any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, welcome aboard and thank you for applying.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Yeah.
And, okay, Council, we're at Beth Ann Mueller. How are you? How are you? Why don't you start by telling us a little about yourself?
Oh, good. My name's Beth Mueller. I live in Barre City with my husband on the north end. We own a small business, which we've run for 35 years. And my work with the unhoused community has ranged from being on staff at housing shelter for 7 years. About 10 years ago, a friend of mine and I befriended a longtime homeless individual who was on the streets of Barre. And over the course of probably 7 or 8 months, we finally worked with him in getting him to the different agencies that could help and got him into housing. So that was a real education to me about what folks who are unhoused go through, even in a good housing market, to become housed. I've also worked at our church with having free breakfast available. We did that for about 10 years until COVID shut that down, and we're currently not doing it. But, I just got to know a lot of the folks who are on the street here in Barre, and it was a very good experience. So that's basically in a nutshell, my background in working with unhoused people in Barre, and I would very much like to work on the committee.
Thank you. Council, questions?
Thanks for coming.
Oh, you're welcome.
Move to approve.
What's that?
I would move to approve.
Okay, motion has been made by Councilor Guston, seconded by Councilor Shambell. Kind of the same question. I just wanted to know if you had the opportunity to speak with others on the committee, you understand the demands on your time, and you're prepared to meet that commitment.
Well, actually, full disclosure, my husband was on the committee for 3 years, so I would listen in on the meetings, and yeah, in that sense, yes, I have.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Council, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, thank you very much for
Okay,
applying. Welcome
thank you
aboard.
kindly.
And so just Nicholas, with this appointment, where are we with numbers? We're good? All right, lovely, excellent.
Yeah, I think that rounds it out
Great.
with this last appointment, so they're finally at full strength.
Love it.
Heather Milne Ritchie, how are you? Come right on up, tell us a little about yourself. Most of us already know, but that's okay. It'll just be a little redundant.
So I'm Heather Milne Ritchie. I was born and raised in Barre, and I currently live in Plainfield, but my granite carving studio is in Barre. I've sat on the cemetery committee before. I resigned from that because I had a conflict in my schedule. I had taken on an apprentice, and it just didn't work out to leave a newbie alone for a while. And now I've got my schedule worked out that I can attend meetings, and I'd really like to rejoin.
Fantastic. Council, questions? Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Stockwell, seconded by Councilor Deering. I know you've been on the committee.
Yeah,
So
and
you
I've been in
understand,
contact
and
with
thank
a
you for
couple of
recognizing, when you did recognize that, I'm not doing justice to my membership on the committee, and you knew enough to sort of step away from it. But I know you have a passion for Barre granite, passion for the history of it, and our manufacturing and the sculptors, so I got to ask the question because I ask it of everyone you understand the demands, time demands of the committee, and you're prepared to make that commitment.
Yep, I am, and it's a priority.
You're going to be a great addition. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, council, we are at item 8C on the agenda. This is to accept the CVRPC infill analysis final report. And going to do a combo here. We're going to bundle and authorize the manager to issue a letter of commitment for the EPA grant. So that will be what we're discussing. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Very good.
So, yeah, we're here to kind of give a final report on the Barre infill analysis, which I'll introduce myself first. Thank you, Brian. I'm Eli Toohey. I'm from CVRPC, and I'm a community development planner.
And in case you forgot me from the top of the meeting, I'm still Brian Boyd, senior planner at CVRPC.
So we, in October of 2023, were asked to do an infill analysis. We got a small amount of funding through the Vermont Housing Conservation Board to do that. The goal was to look at infill potential for specifically vacant municipally owned parcels as well as private lots that were available for infill. So we were really careful about that analysis and not being prescriptive that housing will go in any of these places that we identified, just doing an analysis looking at different constraints to see what potential there was there. The constraints that we looked at were slopes greater than 25%, flood hazard areas, floodways, river corridors, small stream riparian buffers of 50 feet, wetlands, conserved land, landslide points, and then existing building footprints. And from that, we determined that about 53.85% of the city had one or more of those constraints. So it actually left quite a bit of area that was available for development. So we broke those down by municipally owned parcels and then privately owned parcels. And then the municipally owned parcels, we broke down a little bit further by size for the type of development that could go there. This report includes the map of the constraint areas. So it shows how much of the city is affected by one of those constraints. We looked at different zoning districts, so there is developable area, the acreage for those developable areas, the number of parcels in the parcel area. There's a map of the municipally owned parcels with those two different sized parcels marked. And then we have the privately owned parcels. We also did, and Brian will speak about this a little bit more, but we did a viewable map that will be available to the city that you can go in and look at any of these parcels to do further work around how you might use these tools, and has a spreadsheet of those parcels available as well. So that's, we do have in this report some examples of different lots that are real lots that we identified and what type of housing might be developed on those. We looked at small scale housing such as ADUs, single family dwellings, and then we looked at more large scale development such as subdividing or multifamily units. So those are all, there's examples of those in this report. And I'm going to hand it over to Brian.
Great. Nicholas, any chance you could pull up that spreadsheet?
I think so. Give me 1 sec.
Sure. So as Eli mentioned, we spent a lot of time wrangling data in a sense to characterize the parcels in the city. And she mentioned we split these out between the municipally owned and the privately owned. And Nicholas will hopefully be able to call up a an Excel workbook that I created, 3 separate tabs, one with all of the municipal properties, so each row represents a different parcel. Second tab with all of the privately owned parcels, and then the third tab is sort of the data dictionary, because as you'll see when you look at the spreadsheet, there are about 50 or 60 attributes assigned to each parcel. And so this spreadsheet's one way to look at the data. I'd probably recommend, at least initially, prioritizing your look at the municipally owned properties. There are 3,000 or something records in the private spreadsheet, so that might make it a little bit tougher to read through. So this is something that you can look at, identify, again, potential parcels that might meet the needs for either development or redevelopment. And you can see the various tabs at the bottom. There's a lot of information from the grand list, all of those constraints that Eli just mentioned, plus information about the zoning district, whether or not it's in the TIF district, the downtown district, is it part of an overlay district, and so on and so forth. So you get an idea based on a couple of the attributes that are included. One, the area that's available for development, and 2, the zoning district that particular parcel falls within, to get a better idea of what you might be able to do with a municipally owned property, or what you might be able to talk to a private property owner about. Can you open the interactive map?
Yes.
And so the last piece of this was an interactive map that we created. So you can think of it as an enhanced version of Google Maps of sorts. I spend a lot of time wrangling data in what's known as a geographic information system. Nicholas was referencing something similar with your asset management system. So what I did was pull together all of these different data layers, and as I mentioned, there's 50 or 60 characteristics for each parcel, assembled those all at the parcel scale, and then built this map viewer where you're able to toggle data layers on and off, click on parcels to identify the parcel characteristics of an individual parcel within within its given location. And then the last piece to mention, the last piece I would mention is the ability to, this view looks a little bit different, to actually query the data. And so we presented this information to the Housing Committee a couple of weeks ago, and talked about sort of sample ideas for ways to interrogate the data further. So I've mentioned this word characterize a few times. Our job is really to characterize these parcels and identify development potential. It's really up to the city now to take this to the next step and decide, both for the municipal properties, where they think it makes sense to focus on development or redevelopment, and also developing a strategy to reach out to private landowners to encourage them to consider or better understand what they have in terms of the potential for additional development on their property. So I would encourage folks to take a look at the map, just click around, play with a little bit. I'd be more than happy to come back for a specialized session to really dig into the data more. But I'd also make a request of the city, and for you to think about the characteristics that you think are important or think are most amenable to either development or redevelopment. And I can build specialized tools within the map viewer so that you can simply click a button to say, I want to find all the parcels that are in the urban 1 zoning district within the TIF district, that's not in a floodplain, that has at least 2,000 square feet of developable area on the parcel. And you can be as specific as you want. I might not be able to do all of that because it might just not exist within the data, but to the extent that that information exists within the data, I can build some pretty simple tools that you can click, identify that subset of parcels, move over to the grand list. You can identify property owners and use that as the basis of an outreach campaign to say, hey, your property might be really good for an accessory dwelling unit. Did you know that your property is large enough that you could subdivide and still meet the zoning requirements for the district you're in, and potentially allow a duplex or a quadplex or something on the subdivided parcel?
Yes,
I just say that's wonderful, and thank you. That's great.
Councilor Deering?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm absolutely in awe in the work that you're putting into this data-wise. I mean, I do a lot of data stuff myself, and just what you're putting into this for work is just astronomical. So to have this tool available at some point is really important, and is a huge tool that we can use, like you said, to identify properties that maybe want to solicit and say, hey, these are the opportunities that maybe you're unaware of that we maybe want to bring to your attention. So thank you for putting all the work into that, both of you.
You're welcome. Two things. One, this is available now. Nicholas can share this link out with everyone. This is public. You can share it out with the entire city. You could put it on your, what was that, redevelop, regroup. You could regroup around, looking at the map itself. There is a lot of data there, and it can be overwhelming. And that's why I say, play around with a bit, not to the point you get frustrated, but to the point you get some good ideas about what you think you want to capture out of here. And I can help build the tools so that you can really quickly, these are the parcels that might work for a quadplex. These are the parcels that might work for an ADU. And you can really work with the housing committee to build an outreach campaign around that and attempt to bring more housing into the city.
Yes.
I just want to say that I've remembered like the earliest meetings where we were starting to set out from the Housing Task Force, we were starting to set out in that group what we might imagine qualifications. And I say, this actually exceeds my expectations for even my beginning imaginings. So this is fantastic. Thank you.
Yes.
And I probably won't be here by the time this happens, so light suggestion of, offering to come back to dig into this data more. And, Mr. Mayor, you've talked about having special council meetings focused exactly on housing. So I think that this could be a really great opportunity for the council and CVRPC to really dive into this stuff. Because it's sort of I feel like the infill development, there is no magic bullet here, but we are 4 square miles. So if we're going to bring, units online, this seems to be Obi-Wan, help us, infill development, you're our only hope. So I think I think this definitely warrants a, deep dive discussion.
I can say I've been called other things in relation to data wrangling and GIS, but never a Star Wars reference. I appreciate that very much.
That honestly surprises me.
Yes.
If the data in this spreadsheet is made public, is there a way to update the column headers or provide a data dictionary as to what the headers mean?
Yes, the third tab in the workbook that where Nicholas first showed you, that is the data dictionary for that. And if you want to change the attribute names, I can do that as well. Okay.
Yes.
I would invite Councilor Wozniak, the future representative. You can join the Housing Task Force.
I thought my calendar was getting more clear, but no.
It's cool. I mean, as someone who spends a lot of time on GIS systems and the Barre City Access page, but has to do it the old-fashioned way by just moving around and saying, okay, that parcel looks right, but let me really take a look at it and see what the constraints are. And I'm used to doing it that way, which is, as you know, is very time-consuming. This is very cool.
Yeah, we just really wanted to put all the information in one place to help really facilitate that thought process and the decision-making around it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
I'll leave you here for
Yep.
EPA. This doesn't involve me.
Yep.
I don't think we need a formal motion for this.
I don't
do
think
we?
so. It was just sort of a awareness because it was coming up on short notice without another council meeting. So I thought, since Eli was going to be here anyway, we could.
Okay, so we'll move to the letter of commitment on the EPA grant.
Yes, so CVRPC is in the midst of applying for 2 EPA
brownfields grants. So one of those is a coalition assessment grant. And I've sent out some information. 29 of those are awarded for FY '25. They're 4-year grants. We are working with a grant writer who's been successful in securing these grants for other RPCs. It's Thursday, so that's kind of why I reached out to Nicholas today. Our 2 other lead coalition members are CVEDC, so the Center for Vermont Economic Development Corporation, and Brown Street. And we're hoping that Barre City will have a commitment letter to also be one of those lead coalition members. We already have a brownfield program at CVRPC, but we reached the maximum for the amount of money that we're funded for that pretty quickly each year. So this is the assessment coalition grants are specifically for assessments, so that's phase 1 or phase 2 assessment, environmental assessments. Brownfield site, definition of a brownfield site is something with real or perceived contamination. So it often means that the site is vacant or while it's transferring ownership, there's also barriers to that cleanup. We're also applying at the same time for a revolving loan fund grant, which is up to $1 million, and that is for cleanup efforts. So we would actually set up a revolving loan fund at CVRPC specifically for cleanup funds to be dispersed to our region. It's not just Barre, but a lot of brownfield sites are in Barre. Barre is the area that we highlighted for our grant. And so we really would like Barre City to be a coalition member.
So a motion would be in order. Council, you did have an example of the support letter that should have been at your place. So it would be to authorize the manager to issue this letter of commitment for the EPA grant.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Stockwell, seconded by Councilor Wazazak. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, thank you very much. Ma'am, are you here for item G, 8G on the agenda? We actually did that, we approved that under the consent agenda.
Well, I wondered if,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we've already approved that under the consent agenda.
$500? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, I did have a couple of things I wanted to bring up.
We moved it to the consent agenda and the council approved it. I'm sorry.
No, I would like them to look at the number of crashes that.
Ma'am, did you hear what I just said? That council moved it up under the consent agenda and we approved it. So the item was passed.
So I'm wondering if, for clarification, she understands the item is passed and that the study will be done. I think there's a concern about how accurate the data might be. Is that true?
Yes.
Ma'am, we already dealt with it. We passed it. It's
I
no
understand.
longer on the agenda. I was letting her know that as a courtesy.
Yes, yes.
So there's no point in any discussion. Any discussion would be out of order. Okay, council, we'll move to item 8E on the agenda. This is a final review of the flood resiliency plan.
I'm sorry, winter
Yes.
parking rules.
Oh, sorry. Those are exciting too. We're at item 8D on the agenda, which is the new winter parking rules overview.
So, thank you, council. This will look very familiar. We had a preliminary discussion on this a couple weeks ago, and I'm struggling here to get this to share. Give me 1 second. Let me try again. See if this works. Now it's working. So I just wanted to, since we are approaching winter parking ban time begins November 15th, thought it would be helpful to have a refresher on the new pilot program that we had talked through a couple of weeks ago. So just as, again, as background, what was the winter parking ban? It was basically provided that there was no parking on any city streets or city parking lots from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. from November 15th through April 1st of every year, and that was solely for the purpose of making sure that we could keep streets clear of plowing. We did and we still do have overnight parking permits for in designated spaces around city parking lots that residents who don't have off-street parking can purchase. Anyone who violates the parking ban would have been towed so that the streets could have been properly plowed. So we talked about, changing it up. I think at least I'd heard from both landlords and tenants unhappiness with this very rigid, blunt parking ban. So there were a lot of times when there is no snow in the forecast when the rules would still apply, which is a hardship for many people, especially people who are renting. And so there was, there's other communities who've had success with less strict parking bans, and we thought it was worth piloting one here in Barre. So this is what the new rules will be starting November 15th. We're going to transition to a forecast-dependent parking ban. So the parking ban will still be 1 a.m. to 6 a.m., but it will only be in effect when we call one. So if there is snow predicted to be in the forecast, we will issue a parking ban. It's another good reason to sign up for Regroup, by the way. And if a parking ban is called, it will be the exact same rules. You cannot be on a city street or in a city parking lot, except for, of course, a designated overnight parking spot between the hours 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. We will.
Question.
Sure.
Why 1 a.m. to 6 a.m.? I mean, our crews are out plowing at, 9 o'clock in the evening.
It was just for consistency. I think that the 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. was the prior rules for the parking ban. So it's one less variable, at least as we're rolling out new rules.
Gotcha.
So these in the same way that, for example, we issued a boil water notice for the water break, we would issue a no parking ban when there's snow in the forecast, and residents will be responsible for finding a way that they will regularly receive these updates, especially if you do not have off-street parking, right? So it doesn't impact me. I have a driveway, but if you do not have a driveway, a place to park, you have to find a reliable way that you will get city updates, whether it be Regroup, which is the best way to do it, the city's Facebook page, the city's website, VT Alert. Those are all going to be ways that you can be notified that a parking ban has been issued. We also have the signboards out, but we only have 3, so they're strategically placed. You may have seen them already out deployed, so they are ready to go. But again, if you don't drive those thoroughfares, you're not going to see it. We still do have permits available for people who wish to purchase them, and we will make auxiliary parking when a snow parking ban is issued. We will allow people to park during the hours of 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. Up at the BOR, the dirt parking lot up on the hill. We're going to have to be strict about this as well. We have events up there, of course, so this is not, the BOR parking lot is not a permanent parking spot. We're going to expect people to sort of move on from that space when there is no parking ban in effect.
And what happens if you don't?
We hope that they're few and far between. I think right now one of the things we're struggling data-wise is the breadth of people who are going to need the parking. So we know that there's about 53 overnight parking spots that are permitted. On the worst night, the people who've been in the city the longest say that the most cars that have been towed any particular night is 20 vehicles. So we're expecting, maybe the whole range of people who are in need of this parking is in the 50 to 70. We expect still some people to purchase overnight parking permits because they are frankly more convenient, right? People may not want to trudge up the hill to park up at the BOR. So we do expect some intake on the parking permits. So we're expecting, we think 70 is the worst case scenario, an absolute worst case scenario. We're actually toying with the idea of trying to do permits, cost-free permits, just so we get more information about people who do need the off-street parking. So we do have a better sense of the data. We may be too far into it for this go-around to do that, but we think 70 is probably an absolute worst-case scenario, and that's probably very conservative because it's doubling up both the parking permits and the max number of cars that have been towed in any given event. And so we hope that it's light. We hope that, we do issue, the police department, the first couple of weeks into the parking ban will generally issue warnings. So if we do have people who tend to be sticking around the BOR, we'll probably do warnings and then we'll escalate from there. So this is just some of the more operational issues. We're going to be monitoring the forecast more closely. That's going to be a city staff responsibility. We're going to be especially since this is a pilot program, we're going to be very conservative in terms of our calls for when we trigger a parking ban. We may issue a parking ban when there's not a plow event, and that's because we want to err on the side of caution, especially as we're trying this out. And we will, the same way we issue a parking ban, we'll also be lifting it. So again, we unfortunately had the experience recently with the boil water notice, and it won't be too unlike that. We'll issue, just like we issue a boil water notice and we lift it, we'll issue a parking ban and we'll lift it as well. And the communications, again, just a reminder for folks, the Regroup app is the absolute best way to get this when we issue the bans and when we lift them. The other options are, of course, VT alerts, the Facebook page, and the city website. We will be updating all four of those every time there's both a snow emergency parking ban and when it is lifted. I mentioned the digital signs. They have already been deployed, and we will be using the Civic Center sign on Seminary Street and Main Street because that is going to be alerting people to the option of parking up on the hill when the emergencies are in effect.
Will it also let folks know that a parking ban is in effect?
Yes, they will.
So it'll say something like parking ban in effect, additional parking.
Exactly, at the BOR, exactly. So this is just, again, just as a reference, there's 53 overnight parking permits that will remain available. Again, we expect people to still take us up on these. These are all located in central locations in the downtown area. So I expect people who don't want to take advantage of the BOR, who, and I acknowledge for them it may still be a challenge, may still want to purchase parking permits. So we expect some uptake on this as well, even with the new rules. And as I mentioned, the BOR parking is the option. This is the communication plan that we talked about earlier as well in terms of getting words out about this. We have flyers ready to go. The postcards are going to be a little bit delayed. We've backpacked flyers with the students at the school district for the Regroup signups. And so we've been very, very happy so far with the Regroup uptake. We're going to do a little bit more aggressive these next few days on the actual parking rule changes. We wanted to, we wanted to do the aggressive push on this right as we're coming up to the new rules. We didn't want to do it too early so that, it sort of got lost on people. We want to hit them with a lot of this in the next couple of days. And we'll be using Regroup for that as well. And just as a final comment, I mentioned this the first time we talked about this, that this is still just a pilot program. We are not changing. There's signage in the city, and I know this is going to, create some confusion. We're not going to do new signage. We may remove some signage to avoid confusion because there is signage about the old parking ban rules. We don't know if this is going to work, and we're willing to give it a try. There may be things we haven't thought about. There may be, it may not work. And so we are, we're not going to put up new signage to talk about this program until we've worked out all the potential challenges with it. The city's going to have some responsibilities on this, is, to monitor forecasts, which we did anyway, but we're going to have to do a little bit more closely because, we won't always have the cars moved if we're not careful with it. And residents have a responsibility too. And especially if you don't have off-street parking, you have a responsibility to find a way that you will consistently stay informed and get updates. Because if frankly, if it becomes too much of a burden to plow, we're gonna have to go back to the old harsh ban, which I don't think many people want to go back to. So it's a joint responsibility between the city and residents to make sure that we can make this work. So, yeah.
Yes.
First, thank you. This is amazing. I'm very excited about it. I just want to reiterate what you had said before, Nicholas, when we were talking about regroup, which is anybody can sign up for it.
Yes.
So if you're a landlord and you live in Barre Town, or you're a landlord and you
Yes.
live in Montpelier, you could sign up for it, and then you could maybe let your residents know when
Absolutely.
there's an off-street parking ban, maybe if they're not signed up for it.
Right.
So I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of that. They might have
Absolutely.
missed that earlier, so thank you.
And then just to piggyback off of that, what I was gonna add is just, mentioned this last time, specific outreach to, like, there's a landlord
Yes.
group in town, and
Yep.
like, my building is managed by Stone and Browning.
Yes.
And like, when there's a water main break, they're always really good about, like, I get the VT alerts,
Right.
but they also send an email too. So just as you're putting together the outreach comms for this.
Yep.
Direct outreach to those, property management companies, housing developers, and landlord groups.
Councilor Schaumburg?
I also want to thank you for putting it together and thinking so thoroughly from beginning to end so that all these pieces coincide and making the timing work. I think it's brilliant. So thank you for that. Are we going to do a revisit like a month or 2 months in?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, assuming we get some snow events. You know, it may be that, you know, hopefully we don't have to use this system too much this year, but I think that's a terrific idea. Once we have a couple of rounds of this to revisit it and see what's working and not working. And hopefully, you know, we'll continue to, we really want to make this work. I think there's, you know, there's a lot of people who've have hardships with this program. It's tough on, like I said, both landlords and tenants. So if we can make this work, it'd be great. And so that's our goal, is to make it work. And if we find challenges, we'll try to address them. And hopefully, the issues that come up are small and solvable and not systemic.
Burn Rose?
Hi, thanks, Mr. Manager. Could you please tell us where those 3 information boards are? Thank you.
Yeah, there's one by the Vermont Granite Museum. I believe there's one right close to the Walgreens parking lot, and the third one, I believe, is on Washington. I believe I can pinpoint them on a map. So I can't. The third one, Burn, is escaping me at the moment. But they're basically, what we try to do is get the two main north-south entrances into the city, and then one right at 62. So that's for general reference, that's where we've placed them.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Yep.
Slightly tangentially related, is the regroup, you may have said this, is the regroup onboarding training thingy on the website?
It is, yeah, it's right on the banner, right at the top.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
And the second hardest thing for me
have it open,
was,
and it says sign up for
There it
there's
is.
a lot going on our webpage. I never thought to look in the banner.
The top,
for
yeah.
I was
Yeah.
looking for the square. I'm
Yeah.
like, where, it's gotta be here. It was right in front of me. No, you've done a great job on this. Biggest concern that I have is, as someone who has to manage a lot of parking lots, the excuses amaze me. I did not see the sign, placed at 5 feet, so when you drive in, you're looking right at the sign that bans parking, but they didn't see it. So folks, chances are if it's snowing, there's a ban. So if it's snowing, you have a responsibility to make sure you understand if the parking ban was in effect. You know, towing a car, Nicholas doesn't want to do it, dispatch doesn't want to do it, but they will do it, and I'll insist they do it. Because when we create and we start narrowing city streets and plows have to try to miss cars, sometimes they don't miss them, sometimes they hit them. Sometimes they're so focused on the car that they don't see the pedestrian right in front of the car trying to make their way across the road. So that's my biggest concern. is that people will pay attention and be responsible, because when we tow your vehicle, it's going to cost you $250 and a trip to South Barre to get it back. And I was on vacation, I overslept, none of those are going to work. You're going to be paying the $250. So if everyone just takes responsibility and pays attention, this will work. It's not complicated. You know, people do it in larger cities all the time. Councilor Spaulding.
When you just said that, that made me think of, so if someone were to go away on vacation and they usually park on the street, can they park up at the BOR for a week's time, 2 weeks' time? Should they get a permit with you or just some sort of?
I think the best option for somebody in that situation would be to get an overnight permit for now. I think one of the permit idea actually came up at the department head meeting this morning, and I don't know if we'll be able to roll it out, and we may be able to roll it out in time for this season. Right now, their best option would be an overnight spot. Their second best option would be, if they have friends or family, obviously, to move their vehicle. I hesitate.
The third best option would be, if you have friends or family, say, hey, can I leave my car here for a week just in case it's a parking ban while I'm gone?
Or leave them with the keys so they can
Or the
leave your
keys,
car.
right,
Yeah.
one of those options.
Either or.
I hesitate to say park at the BOR just because there are events there, and, you know, we do get like the craft fair, we do get the high school games, it does get busy, so I hesitate to say leave it there at the moment. I think if we get to the point where we can have that permitting system, again, a no-fee permitting, just a data permitting, we may be able to get something more nuanced.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. You all set? Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
We'll see, so we'll start a little pool. Proceeds will go to charity. How many vehicles will we have to tow in the first snowstorm?
Proceeds go to pipes.
Thank you, Cat Allen. The Cat Allen.
Okay, council, we are at item 8E on the agenda. Now, we're at the final review of the flood resiliency plan.
Great, thank you. I will pause and we'll wait until Nicholas.
Yeah, I have too many windows open.
That's
Give me
all
1
right.
second.
Stand by, there's a very exciting PowerPoint coming.
There's colors and everything.
Couple of them, yeah.
Black and white.
No.
No,
A little teal.
Sorry.
we're just vamping for you.
There it is.
Brilliant, thank you very much.
All right.
All right, thank you all for your participation in this process. So far, we're here tonight, Councilor Wozniak and I, to present the flood resiliency plan for final review and adoption by City Council. If you go to next slide, please. Wanted to start with a little review of how we got here in the first place. These specific conversations, obviously how we got here in the first place is several hundred years ago, we started building too close to the river, but more recently, the July 2023 flood, the December 2023 flood, and the July 2024 flood all made us all very keenly aware that we needed to do a more thorough and concerted plan to address the future of flood resiliency in Barre City. So we had a number of conversations in council, starting in May, with the sort of changeover in council and the new conversations. A number of those the mayor had convened at Alumni Hall, specifically to address what it would look like to develop a plan, a specific and a concrete plan for a more resilient future. In response to that, Councilor Wozniak and I, in the following month, drafted the first plan, which contained a number of the seeds of what is in this final plan, but is substantially updated and changed since then. We updated that draft for review at council again in July 2024, and then took that draft review and feedback from council on that draft review to a series of public presentations, conversations, and meetings under community review from August to October. We've discussed many of those steps at previous council meetings. They included holding office hours at coffee shops downtown, receiving feedback by email, receiving feedback by people stopping us on the street, and having ideas, individual meetings with a number of key figures, a long sit-down meeting with city staff, as well as most recently, a series of forums in which residents were invited to provide feedback on each goal. And we arrive at November 2024, the final plan for review and adoption. And then May, I swear that should read May 2025, will be our 6-month review. Because as those of you who saw this plan in the council packet ahead of time, whether you're watching along at home or whether you're on council, a key goal of this plan from the absolute beginning of this plan was that this include its own measures for accountability and transparency, that the plan consider and implement ways to follow up on itself, to review the work being done, to make sure people knew that the city is working very hard in, as I said previously, concrete and specific ways to address flood resiliency. And one key part of that is to do a full formal review every 6 months. So we would look to, upon adoption by council today, the first of those 6 months review in May. And I will take a breath and allow Councilor Wozniak to fill in anything that I have overlooked or not said.
No, I would just add that the meeting with city staff was just very incredibly valuable. And their depth of knowledge of how all of the different plans that we do have intersect with each other, and just really, while also saying, the thing that was said at that meeting over and over again was we don't want another plan to just sit on the wall for the sake of having a plan, which we all knew, but it was really good to hear that directly from them and helped reinforce the importance of these accountability measures and revisiting, because this is very much intended to be a living, breathing document.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just putting this marker out here, what this plan is and what it isn't, and I think that first bullet point follows from what Councilor Wozniak just said. I think we heard a lot throughout this process from council and everything else, that this is meant to be a centralized space where the city's actions and plans around flood resilience are held and tracked. It does not supplant or replace other plans. It references other plans. The city still has to have a local hazard mitigation plan under FEMA. It still has to have a city municipal plan. It still has to have a wastewater plan. It is required to have quite a lot of plans. As a matter of fact, what this flood resiliency plan does is references and connects to those other plans, provides a central place for everyone to see and hold us accountable to what we are doing as a city to improve the city's flood resiliency. So where the plan touches other plans, that is noted in the text. This will also likely become a point of improvement upon review, because we're going to keep finding more plans and keep plugging them in and keep cross-referencing them. And lastly, the plan is very much geared towards action, success, and transparency. Councilor, anything you want to? All right. All right. Substantive updates. The last time you saw the plan, it looked quite a bit different. Each goal now includes sections as followed. Many of these requested by council at meetings. Councilors had really excellent ideas around how we could frame each goal. So each one now includes a description, and that description sort of spells out the plan. I would say that these descriptions became more nuanced, more thorough, and more thoughtful, especially with feedback from Barre City residents, especially at the ward forums. I spent quite a lot of time reviewing all of the many notes that people took at those forums, and made sure that I was capturing people's thoughts on those. So those descriptions were updated and improved upon by that public feedback. The descriptions also include those references to other plans. You'll see that this goal is also referenced in the 2020 City Municipal Plan goal under housing, for example, was one, as an example of that. Each goal now includes partners, identified partners ranging everywhere from the federal government and our federal delegation down to local organizations and nonprofits. By partners, we don't necessarily mean these are already agreed upon, everyone has already signed a partnership document, but these are sort of aspirational people we think would be good to work with, people that we think who have expertise, knowledge, and can offer support in those areas. Each goal has an identified city role. As we've discussed earlier, there are parts of this plan that the city cannot make happen by itself. This comes up constantly in relation to the railroad trestle, for example. The city cannot by itself do anything about that. It can be an advocate. In other areas of the plan, it can be a convener. In some areas of the plan, it can do every single thing in that goal from start to finish by itself. So each area is identified what the city can do to make that goal come about. And then the next two pieces are the pieces I would expect to see change the most at each review, and that is progress and next steps. This plan is designed not only to respond to our ongoing work, but also to track our ongoing work. You should be able to go back to this plan and say, where are we on this? And it will say that in the plan. What's next on this? And it will say that in the plan. And those I expect will continue to be finessed, developed, and improved upon with continued public feedback and continued work on each of those goals. The plan, as you see it in your packet, contains updates as of Friday at noon. As you can see, we've already this evening looked at the infill study, and there's already something more to add to the plan and progress we've made. And I would say that for me personally, keeping track of how quickly things are moving over the course of the summer, even just from June until now, as we were continuing to update and work on this plan, was a lot to keep on top of and also wonderful. It was every week after council, I would make notes of, all right, we approved this, work this into the plan, get this into the draft. Now I can move that next step into progress made before we've even adopted the plan. So I think those sections are both useful, and they've already been a really good way to capture our progress on that. I'm looking over at Councilor Rosick. Okay. All right. Second substantive update slide. The biggest change from any previous version you have seen is that goal 4.2. This is a little bit in the weeds, but I just wanted to review it because it does represent the biggest change to any goal. Originally was described as North End clusters and was originally targeted at a handful of specific requests for buyout that had been received from homes in the North End, and described a somewhat more specific plan of action to redevelop those spaces, or a specific goal to redevelop those spaces. That goal has been converted thanks to a variety of pieces of feedback to a more generalized goal that supports the redevelopment of housing to be more flood resilient, which encompasses both upgrades to existing housing stock, like elevating utilities, capturing. One of the excellent pieces of feedback from city staff was we have to find a way to capture the elevation funding that the legislature approved, and how that's going to play out and improve homes in the city. And then in some cases, that is going to mean the replacement of existing housing stock with new development in, frankly, a variety of ways, but both public and private, likely. This was also possibly one of the goals that people reacted to very strongly in our public forums. And I would say that a consistent piece of feedback we received was to make sure that over the work on this goal, that residents in neighborhoods should be considered first. And that they must be part of the process as changes proceed within their neighborhood. The plan already on its very first page sets as a goal that this is a resident-focused flood resiliency plan. But I would say that quite a lot of people reacted to this goal, did not want people to be displaced in favor of shiny new development, and that the description language within the final plan, I updated to make very sure that we captured that and placed residents at the heart of that work. And then finally, the future projects, we could add to this one forever. But I made some fairly substantial updates and additions to the future projects section, capturing ideas from city staff, capturing ideas from one-on-one meetings, from the flood forum meetings, and also from some of the other things that have come before council in other ways over previous months. So we're going to I'm going to sort of keep an ongoing list of parking lots, and we can formally move them all into the plan at the 6-month review.
Yeah, and I think that it's not specifically, an update, but there was also a lot of discussion as we were talking about the North End clusters generally, but also, that resident focus of the plan was that this is also going to, the plan and the priorities within this plan are going to shift as the opportunities that the city is faced with shift. So something that might be on here, but is not a very high priority, could be moved up to become a high priority if a new round of certain grant funding becomes available, or if, I could foresee, knock on wood, smaller, more localized flooding events that help us see that. We all know the North End is a problem, but there are also, through the ward forums and through the outreach, we heard about these hyper-localized areas of the city that flood when it just rains a little too much. Nothing to the scale of what we saw in July of either year. But as those problem areas, as we continue to hear from residents about those problem areas, having the plan be adaptable to raise the priority of those neighborhoods is also going to be important.
And I want to add one specific example to how even having the draft of this plan has already played out. One of the goals is around supporting city staff capacity. We had identified very early in the spring the need for more staff capacity around applying for funding opportunities and then making sure that projects were carried through. Council approved funding for I'm sorry, Nicholas, I keep getting her title wrong.
Special Projects and Grants Coordinator.
Thank you. The Special Projects and Grants Coordinator, who either the week of or the week after she was onboarded, an opportunity for small bite funding through the Vermont Council on Rural Development came up. I shot off a quick email and said, hey, just heads up, this funding is available. And Tess Taylor, another city staff member, said this matches up with pieces of the flood plan. We can apply to fund 2 of these goals. And within 2 weeks, we had a grant out the door to support hyperlocal neighborhood knowledge walks to identify further sources of flooding challenges, and a series of resident education workshops around building rainwater gardens and a number of other things. So having accomplished the action in the plan of hiring that staff position and having the identified priorities and projects within the plan connected lightning quick, again, truly within 2 weeks, lightning quick, and allowed us to move some really, really good things forward. All right, next. All right, next steps, immediate next steps. My perfectionist soul would like you to know that you have received plain text. I will make it look better. It will be like an actual designed document that has pictures and more colors. So just know that if we are approving the text tonight, I will lay it out to the best of my admittedly somewhat limited ability and follow that up to council so that it can be the kind of document that we can show off a little bit. So that's an immediate next step upon adoption this evening. The 6-month review. 2 key pieces, for example, and I want to call out when I sat down with Mayor Lozon, he had the really excellent idea of creating a priority rubric for the projects that I identified, sort of graded them in a number of areas, and helped us in a world where everything is a priority, helped us further identify priorities for a wide variety of reasons. The timing did not work out to do that for this first adoption, but that is my single highest priority to implement for that next 6-month review as we're sort of working with this plan and getting it done. And I will hopefully bring to council a sort of conversation of what factors, the mayor and I had discussed a few, but what factors we should be grading things on to help us identify. We've got a funding opportunity that could apply for 3 of these. How do we know which one moves forward? And then other future projects we're going to keep coming up with as we get more feedback, as we get information from studies, as we get more information generally, we'll get more projects to do. And so we'll add those to that future projects list so that we can be ready to move them up at the 6-month review. And I would also say over the months to come to that 6 months, another piece of that ongoing accountability is that we had discussed as a council reviewing 1 goal per council meeting. I think we can be flexible about which goal goes which. I think there's a lot of different ways a different goal is going to make sense to get an update. Some might get more than 1 update if things are moving quickly and moving well. But I will commit to working with the mayor and the manager and any other councilors who have an update or a piece that they would like to review to sort of wrangling the schedule on that so that we make sure that there's a consistent and regular update. And then finally, this is sort of a question mark and a point of conversation for council. These both come out of my conversation with the mayor as well. What does it look like to include flood resiliency specific funds in the city budget? A certain dollar amount that no matter what will be spent on a flood resiliency project? And what does it look like to require, possibly through ordinance, review and update in the city annual report alongside the capital plan, which is required to be updated and shared with the public? So what does it look like to really elevate that this to that level as well?
And I think from an advocacy perspective for next steps, portions of this plan, I saw Pat logged on, portions of this plan were already used in the EPA grant application that we sent in. And what formally adopting, supporting this plan is going to do is, not just give Senator Welch, Sanders, and Congresswoman Ballant something to fall back on when they're advocating for federal funds, but I spoke with my other representative-elect, Michael Booton, on election night, and flood resiliency is both of our #1 priorities for the city of Barre. So we also know that because of the national atmosphere, every dollar is going to be even harder to come by. And so this also gives your representatives in Montpelier a really, solid document, a really solid plan that when we're fighting tooth and nail to get all the dollars that we can, and the powers that be say to us, all right, well, what are you going to do with this money? We have a document that's been formally adopted by the municipality that's going to allow us to do that. And that is something that's going to be incredibly valuable because, flooding is a statewide issue. It needs a statewide response, but all we can do in the city is focus on Barre and try to help Barre. And we all know that governments are much more willing to put money behind something when there's already a plan in place. So this is when we are, we're going to fight for flood resiliency for all of Vermont, but when we're talking about Barre City specific things, this plan is going to put us in a really strong position when we're all competing in Montpelier to get those flood resiliency dollars. This is going to be invaluable for us. And so not quite a next step, but very much a next step in terms of advocacy for the city of Barre.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. And on to the last slide, which is just questions and discussion, either from council or anyone in attendance. I wonder if you might close the PowerPoint too, so we can see if anyone from Zoom has questions.
Questions?
Hey, Cheryl, it's Kat again. Kat Allen. One.
She knows that.
Well, now she knows. I have loved seeing this plan come together, the amount of effort by council to actually get out into the community and to like have pointed discussions with everyone by having multiple meetings that people could attend in the different wards. You could attend any meeting, didn't matter what ward you lived in. I thought that the outreach really met the goal of it being a resident-driven plan, so thank you. I also really love the addition of the city role in each of the goals. You know, I like to consider myself young, but it's been a long time since I took a civics class, and sometimes it can be really hard to remember like what is a municipality's responsibility or within their means to be able to do. And so I really appreciate having that bullet added to increase transparency. Along the lines of regroup, I also think that this plan potentially allows to disseminate good news when it comes. I know that our representatives and then also the state and council have really been working tirelessly since the flood of 2023 to do really good work and to be able to get a lot of good things happening in Barre. And I don't know that those efforts are always very transparent to our residents. You know, like sometimes things are like magically fixed and you don't know the effort that went into it. And so I would encourage council to leverage regroup or other messaging vehicles when they are able to start a new project that's on the list, because it's sharing that proactivity. Also to share when special funding has been received, because I think a lot of times that you see work done, like any type of municipal work, people automatically think it's like our taxes paying for it. And that's certainly not always the case in these situations. So leveraging the app to increase that transparency, but also to share good news rather than the city only telling you when something's awry. But yay, so good, you guys, thank you.
Just Mary, a pet moment online.
Who's there? I'm sorry?
Pat has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even see that.
It's a little fuzzy,
Pat,
yeah.
Moulton.
Well, thank you very much and good evening all. And I just want to give my kudos to Councilors Wasizak and Guston for helping coordinate and spearhead. I couldn't agree more. This is a great plan. I think all the emphasis is in the right place. I think the idea of trying to do regular reviews is excellent and get the news out of what is actually being accomplished. And this becomes basically a roadmap to help us access funding. And it's my plan to share this plan with our friends at FEMA and others to say, what do we know for funding sources that are sitting out there right now? And this is, I mean, sadly, without a disaster supplemental coming out of Congress yet, it is a game of going after whatever funding we can find. But I think the city is well positioned to do that. This plan will certainly help. And so kudos to the council for getting this done and having a roadmap for your future that we can now go and say, okay, where can we find funding to implement this? And I think the citizen-centered piece is critically important. And so just thank you for your work on this.
Thank you. So, well done. Oh, I'm sorry. Another comment, question?
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of things. First, thank you. It's a wonderful, very comprehensive document, and I appreciate it very much. On My proofreading.
I was hoping there were typos, Sonia.
There, no
come at me.
typos, but on 3.4, resolve Berlin Street Bridge, under city role, it says the city owns and maintains both bridges, but
Thank
you're
you.
only talking about Berlin Street.
Yep.
And then on next steps, it says advanced studies that will determine the best outcome for these two bridges, and you're really
Yep.
only referring to Barry, or Berlin. And then I would also encourage you to put on page 31, under the Courier Park, it talks about the Potash Brook, and there's also an Edgewood Brook there as well. And it's, I think part of the issue is where those two brooks come together, and so I think you should mention both of them. Those are my only two proofreading comments. The other comment that I would like to make is that I have been, I worked very, I won't say, I went through your plan, and then I used the equity assessment tool on recommendation from the Joellen Mulvaney and the Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee. And I had a conversation with Joellen about using the equity assessment tool, and I obviously am not very well versed in this tool because I have a lot to learn. But after having a conversation with Joellen, I think that it may be helpful for us. I was looking at the equity assessment tool in relation to the plan. Now, that's actually kind of hard because it's a plan. And so one of the suggestions I wonder if council would consider is how we can include equity as part of the goals of the plan, so that we are using the equity assessment tool maybe for each of the goals that we have. To make sure that we're including people in the conversation, that we have measurable goals and metrics to say, yeah, look, we accomplished this and we can check it off. That we're surveying residents to make sure that we've met the goals that we set out to accomplish. And so, and the other thing that I would note, because I actually asked Councillor Stockwell to look at this as well, there are two. When I was going through the equity assessment tool, specifically for this plan, two groups became apparent that they weren't being included in the equity assessment tool. And one is people living in poverty and the unhoused. And so I bring that to your attention just because I think it's something that we need to remember, that even the conversation I was having with Joellen today about the unhoused is, even though you think about people living in neighborhoods and people living in homes who are getting flooded, people who don't have homes are also being impacted by flooding. And so how can we make sure that our plan is being equitable and taking care of everybody in our community? So I would love to have a further conversation. I think the plan is wonderful, but I think we also can continue to elevate it to the next level and make sure that we're being equitable to all of our, to everyone in our community. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just want to express the concern that I've gotten from residents with 3.4, removing the Berlin Street Bridge. People have called me thinking that the world is on fire and we are taking the bridge out like tomorrow. So I just want to make sure that we're not taking the bridge out like tomorrow, and the world is not on fire, and we can make our residents rest assured that that is not in the immediate future. And I just want to express that I do not support that measure.
Sure.
It's not on fire, it's just underwater. But you'll also notice that we were because we heard those same concerns at ward forums and throughout the building of this plan. And yes, semantics, but it's resolve the Berlin Street Bridge, because that is the ultimate goal, is to resolve. And if that ultimately ends up being removal, we'll get there when we get there. But the goal is to resolve that as a flood hazard, and that there are a couple different ways that could come to life. So absolutely heard, and we heard the same feedback. And yeah.
Thank you. Anything else? So council, I'm not sure if, we probably should document it. I think a motion would be in order.
Make a motion.
Thank you, to note the final review and adoption of the Barre City Flood Resiliency Plan. So the motion has been made by Councilor Deering, seconded by Councilor Guston.
Shambell.
I'm sorry?
Shambell.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were pointing at yourself.
No.
Seconded by Councilor Shambell. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, thank you very much and well done. Council, we're at item 8F on the agenda. This is the buyouts update.
Okay.
We'll take the 5-minute version.
I think, it should be pretty quick. So we have been notified of preliminary awards by FEMA for several buyout applications. The next step is for appraisers to be hired to set purchase prices, which in this case is fair market value before the flood. There's still several months before any residents will close on a buyout. So there's several residents who have been notified that their application is moving in the right direction. There's still, nothing is immediately imminent, but they are obviously progressed to the next step, which is positive. And just as a reminder that, property owners and the city can both back out of the buyout process at any point until the day of closing. And also that if you're not included in this update, it doesn't mean your buyout is not approved. It just means that they're still working through more batches and more awards. We were notified that a few others are moving on today. They haven't been awarded yet, obviously, but things are starting to move. So this is just an update for council, so you can see visually where some of these buyouts are occurring and some of the progress on this very challenging process. So we got a set here of approvals in the Vine Street, Scampini Square, Berlin Street area. The area outlined in green there, we've been notified has been awarded by FEMA preliminarily. And by the way, I should reiterate that the appraisals that I mentioned that are hired, that's all done at the state level and by FEMA. The city, all we did was basically sign off and say, we're okay to move on with this. So those are all tasks that between FEMA and the state they'll be taking care of. So you can see there the batch that is preliminarily approved. This was one of the high priority areas that came through our river group process. So we're pleased that this happened. You may notice there that there's a little divot there on 21 Vine Street. That was an intake that ended up not submitting an application. They had been offered a buyout, but they just never got their applications in. So there is a little bit of a nuance from where we had initially expected to be, but we're still, this feels like Schadenfreude in a way, right? Because it's good news for flood resiliency, but it's obviously really difficult for the people who are moving through this process. But this was a high priority area for rebuilding floodplain. So we're pleased in that regard that this is moving forward.
Sorry, Nicholas, did you say 21 was the one?
21 Vine Street, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so you can see that little
Yeah, just
indentation in, yeah. This is the next one. And I should mention that the two yellow areas they're still pending. Those were submitted, and these were also high on the list of the river project engineers. We don't know yet. That doesn't mean that they're not approved. They're just not in this first batch. The next approval was in the Gunners Brook area, and it was to 7 Harrington Avenue. We also expect several more to come through in this area. This was another place where the river group scientists had a lot of ideas, especially with reworking the trash racks and building a much larger floodplain. So I think actually quite pleased that 7 was approved because we frankly weren't sure they were going to move that far down Harrington Avenue. We actually feel quite confident about the others. So we think this will be a good good floodplain area, good mitigation area once this floodplain is expanded and the trash racks are reworked. Sure.
7, the unit that was they had a fire?
Yes, it is.
Are they going to be potentially bought out at what cost?
It's fair market value the day before the flood, because they also had flood damage.
Is the fire damage going to take into account for that assessment value?
It shouldn't matter because the pre-flood value should be the highest number that they're eligible for. Yeah, so they'll be getting the best possible price for it. And then the other approval we received was in the River Street, Granite Street area. This is for a small property adjacent to the Desrose larger property on that site. And so the commercial properties we've heard from FEMA tend to take a little bit longer, so it's not all that surprising that we're waiting on the Desero property, even though it seems to be obviously the much better candidate. Obviously the property that was approved now has very little mitigation value without the larger property, but again, we expect it to happen. We believe it's a great candidate for buyout. They take longer because they're commercial properties. We also know that there's several on River Street that are pending as well, which again, the river scientists were very optimistic that these two properties on either side of the river would be good areas to catch water. Sure.
The two properties left on River Street on that corner where Granite and Burnham are, or Granite and River, I should say.
Yeah.
They weren't interested in the buyout.
So one of them, the one immediately on the corner, is owned by the city. It's that memorial, and then the one River Street never submitted an application. So the River Street cluster is 4 houses, I believe.
Yep.
So there's still a cluster there, and the river scientists like the opportunity of having floodplain on both sides of this bend.
So with this buyout, it would just leave the one house?
It would leave that one house, yeah. And they may be vulnerable, but they chose not to pursue a buyout. They would have, had they pursued a buyout, they would have been a really good candidate for also receiving an application.
And have we reached out to them by chance to see if something fell through the cracks maybe?
They've been contacted, but they didn't have any interest. I think one of the many things we heard from people in situations like that is they have nowhere else to go.
Right, that's their
So,
position.
yeah. And then the other, the last few slides are all the landslide buyouts. These have also been approved and are subawarded by FEMA. So these are, you see here the 2 Pike Street and the Oswald Street slides, the Portland Street slide, and the Courier Street landslide have all been approved. They're all moving forward. And that's where we stand now. Right now, the impact on taxes paid by all these properties is a cumulative 42,000. That's about 25,000 for the floodplain buyouts and about 17,000 for the landslide buyouts. So it's an impact, but again, we feel, feel that the trade-off of increased mitigation was obviously worth the loss of the revenue in those particular areas. So that's where we are. I just want to make sure council and the public knew where these stood. All these property owners have been notified. They're aware of what I've shared with you, which is that they are moving in the right direction and there's still a ways to go, but it's progressing. So.
Yes. Yes.
Was that me? Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Question about sort of the window of opportunity here. The property that Councilor Deering was just asking about, for example, the 1 River Street. At what point does their window for asking for a buyout close?
The window doesn't fully close. It just
what I thought.
changes what they can get. So basically, they will only get, after they missed the application on, believe what that date was, when they missed that application, the best they can now do is fair market value today. So they basically lose the assessed value before the event. So it doesn't ever close, as far as I can tell. It just changes what you're eligible for. So for example, we had a property that was on an intake that was on Harrington and Maple, and that one changed ownership. They were a buyout candidate. We had submitted it as a candidate for us as well, just to make the floodplain as large as possible. That property changed ownership, and so now that property is also now only eligible for fair market value today. They don't have no interest. They backed out of the program, so it's kind of a moot point. But if you miss the sort of the initial window, or if it changes ownership, the only change is what you can get for it.
When the city floods again, surprisingly, if a house is hit again, does the timer start again?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can find out.
I believe it does.
I think so.
you're re-eligible, so to speak.
Would it be reasonable to assume that then also the assessment value would be much less because the house was already flooded?
Probably,
Yes.
yeah.
So regardless of the time frame, it's still going to be a.
Yeah,
not a very
most
good
people's best
situation.
offer would have come in this first batch.
Certainly, okay.
Sue-Ann Clark, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. Will the city consider not approve of the buyouts?
I can't foresee a reason why the city feels very confident about all of these buyouts. The landslide buyouts are sort of what they are at this point. There are structural issues there. We feel very confident with the floodplain buyouts that the river scientists have vetted and given the nod of approval to that we would pursue them. So I can't foresee a situation where that would happen at this point with the buyouts that we're pursuing.
I'm not aware, Sue-Ann, that's ever happened. The city has, over the years, affected a few buyouts. I'm not aware of any situation where the city has pursued a buyout and then not seen it through.
Nice. Okay, I have another question, if I can.
Sure.
With the closing costs, with the buyout process, or?
Sue, and I believe that it's covered by FEMA. We as the city have very limited insight into that. The only time, the next time any property owners that are going through a buyout will hear from the city essentially is at the closing when we accept the deed. We have no role in the appraisal. We have no role in any of that part of it. So I don't know the answers of all the mechanics of the financing because we, the city, don't manage any part of it at all. Like I said, we'll show up at the closing to accept a deed is basically our next step.
Okay, thank you. And I have one more question, if I can.
Sure.
The market value, is it negotiable or is it set?
So my understanding is that, so FEMA does an appraisal and they somehow come up with the fair market value prior to the flood. It's been explained to me that the property owner, if they disagree vehemently with that appraisal, can get their own appraisal done and work through a FEMA appeal that way. So whether those appeals are successful or not, I can't tell you. What I do know is that it is my understanding that if you vehemently oppose it, that you are able to, at your own cost, get your own appraisal to make a case to FEMA to change it.
All right, thank you for your time and I appreciate all you guys do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no other comments. Council will move on to item 9. Upcoming business, the real focus, as we kind of swing into the end of the calendar year, the real focus immediately is going to be our legislative priorities, trying to get those in order and then communicating those to our senators and newly elected representatives. So we'll really be focusing on that at the next meeting. Where are we at? We're at roundtable. Councilor Stockwell.
I'll pass.
Councilor Spaulding.
One thing I would like to, I have a couple of questions. Sorry, I missed the upcoming business. So I'll just roll it into my roundtable. I'd like to add to the agenda for next week to approve the charge and the working groups for the Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee. I realize that it's not necessary, but the committee would really like the support of the council. So if we could add that to our agenda, that would be helpful. I also wanted to know about, I get confused because of the school board. Is it ARP funds that we have? ARPA, thank you. We have ESSER, so ARPA. ARPA funds, and those expire in December?
Yes.
In 2 months?
Yes,
And are we going to talk about that?
we are on the
Okay.
26th, yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And the last thing for roundtable is I went to the Veterans Day Parade yesterday and the ceremony, and it was lovely. And it's always great to see the veterans honored, and I love hearing the school bands. They're my favorite part, and I was glad I could take some time out of my day to be there. It's great. And that's
Thank
it.
you. Councilor Wozniak.
Yes, a huge thank you to everyone who came out and voted last week. And I am humbled, I am honored, and I am fired up and excited to get to work in Montpelier delivering for Barre City. I think the conversation we had tonight, we talked about housing tonight, we talked about flood resiliency tonight, and those have to be the laser focus heading into next legislative session. And, you know, I joked with Rep-elect Booton when I talked to him on election night that, you know, a lot of times I think we're just going to cancel each other out when it comes to floor votes up in Montpelier, but when it comes to Barre City flood resiliency, him and I are absolutely dedicated to do everything we can, regardless of partisan labels, to bring the resources that are needed into Barre City to make it so that we can live here for another 50, another 100, another 200 years. So I'm ready to get to work. I'm fired up. I've already had conversations with legislative leadership. The first meeting of the Flood Caucus is in a couple of weeks, and looking forward to getting to work there. And, you know, I will be stepping away from council at the end of December, but I'm not going anywhere. I plan on continuing to listen to meetings and you know, continuing to have meetings throughout the year with both the mayor and the city manager, and coming into council when it would be helpful. Because I think that one really strong asset that Councillor Booton, Rep-elect Booton and I will bring to Montpelier is a deep knowledge of the city government and our needs. So I'm looking forward to getting to work, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Councilor Shambo.
I will pass.
Councilor Guston.
Pass.
Councilor Deering.
I won't pass. I honestly as well want to say thank you to all the people that came out and voted, whether it was for me and the 11,000 votes that I received in the Senate race. That was fun. Good eye-opening opportunity to talk to a lot of people in our area, not just in Barre City, but really to expand our horizons. And really just to hit on things like we need more regionalized watershed approaches, that we talk about things here in our council chambers that are constantly beating the drum about flood resilience. But we don't talk enough with our other leaders, regionalized watershed approaches and how things are affecting upstream and downstream. And those are some of the conversations that were really near and dear to my heart, is bringing things together, working together to accomplish as much as possible. So I am nice and re-injuvenated, ready to rock and roll on council and to really get things done.
Thank you. It was a pretty special Veterans Day Monday, and it was a pleasure to welcome the governor and wish the Youth Triumphant Memorial a happy 100th birthday. Doesn't look a day over 10, still looking pretty good. Speaking of the governor, I forgot to thank the governor and his administration. When we did lose water pressure, put in one call to the administration, and within hours, we had pallets of bottled water headed towards the city of Barre. So thank you very much for that. It was very helpful and very appreciated by our residents. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about accepting the results of the election, and the voters have spoken. So congratulations to President Trump on your election. Congratulations to Governor Scott on your reelection. Congratulations to Lieutenant Governor-elect John Rogers on your election. Congratulations, Councilor Wozniak, R.E. Wozniak, Re-Wozniak.
The name didn't get any more
and Rebootin on their elections, and congratulations to our incumbent senators. So we got a lot of work to do. And what's that?
And the JPs, that's right.
And the JPs, that was fun. Nah, I won't say it. Bingo. I liked it. So, yeah, with that, council, we do need a motion to go into executive session. That was for personnel?
Personnel, yep.
Personnel. Would anyone make a motion for findings, please? Made by Counselor Sean Bell, seconded by Counselor, excuse me, by
It was the
Counselor.
opposite.
Yes, the opposite. So just swap, Cheryl, swap that around. You'll get it. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, now we'll need a motion to go into executive session. The manager will be joining us.
So moved.
Okay, Cheryl, it sounded like a tie to me. Take your pick. It was either Counselor Guston or Counselor Sean Bell. Made the motion, seconded. Take your pick, Cheryl. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, thank you very much.
And
We're in-
no action, Dave.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night, Dave.
Night, David.
Bye.
Okay. There we go.
We are
Motion to come out of executive session.
Second.
moved by Counselor Wazazak, seconded by Counselor Shambel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you very much.
Motion to
carries.
adjourn.
Counselor
Second.
Wazazak and Counselor Shambel, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.